Microphone check. Microphone check. Wow, that's quite the delay. All right, cool. Whew, not gonna lie, I'm a little tired. We just flew back from, well, we were in Idaho, but flew back from Washington to LA. And I'm a little pooped, to be honest, so we'll see how long this goes. Maybe like 2 hours or so might be my limit today. And I've been meaning to make a VOR video, a new one to replace the old one that's almost a year old now. Yeah, I've been meaning to make that. I started making it one on Thursday before we left, but I wasn't able to get it done in time. I was actually doing it and realized that one of the things I was trying to show was not working, so it kind of ruined the video. That was like using cross radials in VOR, and I like totally messed up the thing I was showing, so I had to basically redo it or throw away the recording. So yeah, so that happened. But what I want to do is do sky vector stuff, use sky vector to do some Skypark missions today and focus on VOR navigation. Just because I know there's people that still are confused by it. I'm still confused a little by it from time to time, especially when I don't do it for a while. So I'm going to see if I can pick up do some of them, just short flights with a VOR on each one. So hopefully we can find VORs nearby the routes that I'm picking here. All right, I'm gonna find some short routes, and I'm familiar with California, and mostly, and I know there's just quite a lot of VORs there. Florida seems to have a good concentration of VORs too, so I think both of those will probably be good areas to start. I'm gonna do like an 80-mile maximum. Though if we do longer might be good too, just because we can use multiple VORs. Maybe I'll just start with one small one and then see how it goes. KCLW to Kelt. So I'm going to go here first to Sky Vector to do the planning because we can find the VORs there. All right. Sorry, I switched back and forth a few times here. KCLW. Okay, Clearwater Airpark to KELT. Invalid airport. Okay. Ellenton. See if I can find it up here. No. Apparently this airport doesn't exist. Ellenton Airport. KELT. I don't see it. Hey, Claudia, what's up? Flight was pretty good, a little bumpy on the way back, but both legs we were in that E175. It's like at the Embraer like regional jet. So there's only 3 seats per row in the plane, but it was fun. I got to see the cockpit, jump in the cockpit like a nerd on the first flight. So it was cool. Yeah, the pilot was super chill. He seemed like he was like 25 years old, but he was probably older than that. But yeah, he was, we just, chatted for a little bit, and he was telling me about their flight computer I don't know if it recently got upgraded or what, but he basically was like pointing out that they do all their nav and comm radio stuff on the computer, instead of on a separate box, like in the center of the cockpit, like between the 2 seats. So he seemed pretty excited about that. And then the weather info was kind of printing off when I got there too. So there's like a little printer that prints out their ATIS and stuff like that, so they don't have to actually tune in and listen. So that was cool to see that printing out when I was up there too. I was like, oh, hey, I know what that is. But I was just there like a humble sim nerd sitting in the real cockpit, which was kind of cool. I was like, I'm a sim dork. Can I look in the cockpit? They're like, yes. But thankfully my partner was there. So she's like, I actually fly planes. You know, he's a little less of a dork just because he knows me. I was like, oh, okay. But it was a good time. It was so funny. After the flight, it was an Alaska flight, and he gave me, he gave us both pins, like Alaska Airways pins, when we were getting off the plane. He was right there at the door handing them to us. It was like we were little kids. So it was pretty funny. We gladly accepted the pins and thought it was super cool, just like a little kid would. All right, let me try this one. 1F A9 to X06. I actually know X06 is Arcadia because I bought the add-on for that one. There's a Microsoft Flight Sim add-on for that airport that I just thought was really cool. 1FA9, okay, to X-Ray 06. Yeah, which is Arcadia. This one's not going to be a very good VO. Yeah, I guess we could plan around. Oh yeah, this is going to be a good VOR one. And we have DME. I'm going to fly the Cessna 172, the steam gauge edition in this stream. That's the one that has the 530 and the 430 in it. I've used this in a few of my older videos. And the main reason I'm using it, even though I want to use VOR navigation, is the main reason is to have the autopilot, because it's just so much more convenient to have the autopilot while I'm doing the stream, because I can pay attention to the chat and, you know, not do a nosedive. So it makes it much easier, especially when you're also messing with all the knobs, the OBS knobs all the time, and getting the right radials dialed in and stuff like that. I find it a lot more helpful to have autopilot. So, but I'll try to keep it off the map mode as to not use the GPS and not really cheat. But what's cool is it does have this nearest VOR page. So here I've used, and I'm using a mod for this too. There's actually a really good free mod that guy PMS, is it PMS 60? What, I always forget. PMS 50. That guy who makes the GTN 750 mod, which is a free mod that has a paid version. He also makes this 530 430 mod. You know, and he's added stuff like a terrain page and a traffic page. So it's pretty cool. There's a bunch of modifications for this one too. A lot of improvements on it, and it's got a working OBS mode, things like that the stock one does not have. But it's for free. I have it linked in the description. But this plane is only in the deluxe version or deluxe plus premium version. So if you don't have deluxe or deluxe plus premium, which is just both deluxe and premium versions, then you won't have this plane. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna focus on VOR navigation, kind of like a practice run for the new video I want to make. But I know there's just a lot of people have questions about it still. I have questions about it still. So I think it's just good practice. So it'll be cool. Hey Arthur, what's up? First time joining the stream. Oh hey Crispy. Been watching a lot of the videos. Thanks, man. Hope they're helping out. Lost with VOR, I use nav mode or just set a heading with autopilot. Yeah, I'm gonna use nav mode with the VORs instead of with, you can use the navigation mode on the autopilot to stay on the VOR radials that you dial in up here with the CDI right here. Using this OBS knob, this is how you say which radial you wanna be on. And just think of a radial as like a spoke, like a line coming from the center of the VOR in every direction. So you just basically say which spoke or which air highway you want to be on. So say we wanted to head directly south from the VOR, you know, we would put south as our desired course right here with OBS, or our bearing, OBS knob, Omni bearing selector. So anyway, we'll get into that in a second. But what I want to do first is I'm going to jump out of the plane because I'm in Oxnard, I think is where I loaded in. So I'm going to go to the airports we're actually going to fly to. So this one looks like it's going to work. These are two small airports in Florida. but we're going to look them up and we'll use some VORs. I will show you, Jay, how to find the VOR stations. I use SkyVector, so it's basically how a real-life pilot would do it, even though I'm not a real-life pilot. I'm just a sim guy. But, you know, when you do the sim, you can use a lot of real-world tools, and SkyVector is one of them. So it's free. It basically, what's really nice about SkyVector is it pulls together. It's especially useful if you fly in the United States. But it pulls together all of the publicly available information through the FAA. You can go to the FAA site and look these up. It's just not as easy. And if you use SkyVector, you can look up things really quickly. And it also has this flight planning feature. So it's really easy to find the VORs. When you're using this map, this is called the VFR sectional, or the sectional chart. And VFR meaning visual flight rules. So somebody flying in VFR tends to reference this sectional chart. So SkyVector stitches together, like, I don't know if there are hundreds, there are probably at least dozens, if not hundreds, of these sectional charts that cover the world. So they're basically all stitched together in SkyVector. So you can kind of see here, there's like the page is here where it ends. And then the next chart begins. So they're all stitched together in one nice map you can use. Hey, Chirpsy, you have Xbox Series X. Yes, you can use the 530 and the 430 on the Series X. It's just in the deluxe version. So if you have, and the reason I'm using the deluxe version, I mean, if you want to follow along and don't have the deluxe version, you can use the Cessna 152. And basically it'll work the same, roughly the same way. Your navigation radios and your the radios you use to dial in the VORs are a little different, but it'll still work. The reason I'm using the 172 that's in the deluxe version is just because it has an autopilot and it has like a steam gauge cockpit. So it's not the G1000 version. So it makes it easier for me when I'm streaming to have an autopilot. But this is the inside of the 172. So you can see it's got this like standard 6-pack and all these steam gauge instruments, instead of the electronic version, like, you know, the G1000 version. So here, yeah, the 152 is great. The only downside of the 152 is, you know, you don't have GPS, which is great if you want to force yourself to use VORs, which is what we're going to work on for a few hours. And then if you have the deluxe version, you can use the 172. The 152 does not have an autopilot, and the 172 does, right down here, this basic autopilot right here. So that's the reason why I'm using the 172 for now. And I'm also using a mod for the 530, 430. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't pertain to this video, but just full disclosure, I do have a mod installed for this one, a free mod that I have linked in the description. But in either case, what we're going to focus on is these two instruments right here. And actually in the 152, you have two CDIs that look like this. They have both the vertical, they have the glide slope needle here, which is this horizontal one, and the vertical needle. This one down here is like a simplified CDI. It just has the vertical needle. So this just shows us if we're off course laterally. Have I ever tried doing flights in Brazil? Oh, no, I haven't. I tend to stick to the US, which is kind of a bad habit. I should try to fly in other places. I'm just so used to the rules of the airspace in the US. Like, you know, transition altitude is 18,000 and it doesn't, you know, vary from country to country or, but yeah, I should explore more. I just stick to what I know, kind of, which is not a good practice. Is there any way to upgrade to deluxe by just having the base? Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, same what Crispy said. Yeah, you can just go to the marketplace and find the upgrade. So I think it's under bundles. If you go to paid and then you go to full catalog right here in the top left. Under here, I think it's under bundle. Yeah, and here's deluxe upgrade, premium upgrade, or premium deluxe, which is actually just both of them together, or, you know, both premium plus deluxe. They should really call this premium plus deluxe because it's really both. But this plane that I'm flying, the 172 steam gauge version, is here, right, in the deluxe version. So it's right here, Cessna 172 Skyhawks. Notice it doesn't say G1000 on the end. So this is the steam gauge version of it. How old is VOR? As far as I know, it's like the mid 40s. It was operational in the United States, so a really long time. You feel the same learning here in Brazil, or learning in Brazil using the rules. You're used to learning the rules of the US. Oh, I see. Yeah, if you look up the charts, I don't know how where to get the charts for like departure charts and airport charts. Usually they'll have the transition altitude on the top of like the takeoff minimums charts. I forget what the Jeppesen chart number is. There's a specific Jeppesen chart that will show the transition altitude and stuff like that. Okay, so let's start this first flight. So these are the airports we're flying to and from. It's just a really short flight, 37 miles, so I can demonstrate a VOR thing really quickly, how to use them. So if you use these sectional charts, so I'm on skyvector.com, you can find a VOR just by looking for these big blue compass roses. So like this right here, this big blue compass rose. At the center of that is a VOR. And there are like 3 different types of VORs, actually. Some of them are just straight up VORs, and they just let you get a direction to and from the VOR. Then there's a VOR DME, and there's 3 different icons for them too. There's a VOR DME, which means a VOR with distance measuring equipment. So that VOR has the capability to also tell the equipment in your plane how far you are from the VOR. So that adds a lot, that makes it a lot just really helpful, because you can just be like, oh, to get to this airport down here, this one, Southwest Florida International, from this VOR, I just fly, and we can see this blue line right here. I fly on the 228 radial, and a radial is just, think of it like a spoke coming out from the center of the VOR. Like this is the wheel, and there's a spoke in every direction, 360 spokes. A radial just means which one of those spokes are you flying on, either to the VOR or away from the VOR. So in this case, we actually get, we see a Victor airway, which connects 2 VORs, is drawn on the map. So right here we have this teal line, this very light blue line, going from one VOR to another. And there's actually one over here, because you can kind of see the compass rose around here. It's like it's very cluttered in this spot on the map. But that gives us a quick reference of which radial to fly out and inbound on. So right here, it says you would fly on the 228 radial outbound from this VOR, just flying in this direction. And then there's also this right here, the 051. So that's telling you how to fly inbound to this other VOR. So, you know, to be more precise, we would switch over from one VOR to the other one. But you can see that this VOR is right at an airport, actually. So it gets a little busy in these maps sometimes, but right here it says VOR TAC or VORTAC. This is the 3rd type of VOR. So there's a VOR DME, and then a VOR TAC, which is VOR and TACAN. TACAN is a military, it's basically VOR for military use, but for us, it behaves like the same as a VOR DME, which is VOR with distance measuring equipment. So it pretty much works the same way as that. So anyway, so this is how you find a VOR. So what I want to do is find a VOR that can help us go from this airport right here down to this airport. So this, maybe I shouldn't start. I'm trying to figure out to start with this one or not. So the reason why this one's a little tricky is just we can navigate using the VORs, but we won't be able to just fly directly to a VOR. There's no VOR at this airport. You can see the airport icon here, but there's no compass rose around here. There's not a VOR at every airport, pretty much only at major airports and kind of in major areas in between airports, I guess you could say. Sometimes you'll find a VOR that's not at an airport at all. So I know there's one over here in California I've seen a few times. Not the Williams. It's a little more north. Probably not. Oh, here is it the Fellows? Oh, here's one called the Fort Jones VOR. So here's one, for example, that's not near an airport. It's actually up on this like mountaintop over here at 4,800 feet. So they're not necessarily always at an airport. You can also use two VORs without DME to figure out the distance. Yes. So we can use like cross radials. So that's why it's really nice that we have two CDIs and two navigation radios in our plane, is that you can figure out, just like Jay is saying, you can find out, or sorry, like Arthur is saying, you can find out where you are just by finding an intersection. So we could look at two VORs, and so for example, if we're flying in on this VOR, say we're flying to this airport that we're going to fly to, we're flying kind of southwest bound this direction, and say we're using this VOR, and I'll point out the radial in just a second. We'll figure that out. We could use this radial to kind of fly towards this VOR in the bottom left corner, this VOR called the Punta Gorda VOR. So we're going to use that as kind of our beacon to fly towards this airport. But what we could also do is tune into this VOR at the same time down here. And if we're in range, and say I just drew like a line here too, we would kind of be able to figure out where we are in relation to this VOR at the same time. So we could figure out, say, our question would be, okay, which radial are we on of this VOR down here? So say we're right around here, flying on this intersection that I'm moving my mouse at. Say we're right here, we could basically look at that bottom VOR, and you can see the numbers around it. So we can tell, like, for instance, right here at this moment, if we are on the 330 radial, we will know we're at this point. So you basically use it to find an intersection between, use two VORs to figure out your location. So we can try that along the way. I'm just going to delete this waypoint for now. Yeah, CDI is course deviation indicator. So literally, how far are you deviating off your intended course? So it'll show you whether you go left or right, or more technically, it's not just left or right, but assuming you're trying to track the course and you're going in the same heading as the course that's dialed in, the same, you're flying that course. Well, I'll show you once we jump in. It'll be more clear, but it'll basically tell you which direction to go to get onto that course. In our case, our course is this magenta line. This is our intended course that we're going to fly for this flight, just a direct route from one airport to the other. So this one's just a little tricky because there's no VOR at this airport or the one that we're going to. So, but what we could do is fly towards, I mean, when we fly on the VOR, we'll fly it kind of towards one. So if I put a little mark here and I remove this, basically what we could do is take off from this airport and fly towards this VOR. So this magenta line is not too far off our intended course, right? We want to get to Arcadia right here. And we can also see that Arcadia is really close to this VOR, the Victor Airway coming from this VOR. So from this one, LaBelle, see this blue line right here that says 312? That's going right past the airport. So that means that if we fly down here towards this VOR, and then we get to a point where we're at the 312 radial from this VOR as kind of that intersection, then we'll know that we're right here in this spot on the blue line. So it's really close to Arcadia. So we'll basically know when we're getting really close to it by using two radials and two VORs. Now, in this case, so what I mentioned about DME is that this right here is just labeled VOR. The reason why there's no icon in the middle is because right here, the airport diagram is kind of taking priority. They showed the little airport icon instead, but there is a VOR at this airport. And so it just says VOR in text there, so we know what type of VOR it is. So this VOR has no DME. We won't be able to tell, even though our plane has the capability to, we won't be able to tell how far we are from this VOR through DME. That would be the easiest way, because then we could just say, oh, let's just fly from this waypoint on that vector, on that course, until we get to this point, and we just figure out how far that is. So if I went to my nav log, we can see the number of miles, so 35 miles. So we would just fly until we are 19.9 miles from this VOR, and we would know or it says 20, it's rounded up. We're not going to be able to do that because this VOR does not have DME. So I know this is probably, this kind of stuff is hard to explain just in words. So once we should just get going and try it out. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to get in our plane and we're going to set it up to dial in. We're going to tune in, sorry, to this VOR, the Punta Gorda VOR. And we're going to do that by looking at this number right here, 110.2. So that's the VHF frequency, or the radio frequency for the VOR. And the V in VOR actually means VHF. So that's the type of radio frequency, or the bandwidth or the range of frequencies that it runs on. Somebody is peeling out outside my apartment here. So anyway, let's load in. We're going to load in at this airport right here, which is 1 Fox Alpha 9. And if you want to fly along, I'm on the US West server. So I have multiplayer on. I'm just going to change the time a little bit so we have some daylight here. So I'm going to go over here and put in that airport 1, what did I say? Fox Alpha 9. And then our destination is going to be the Arcadia airport, which is right down here, X-ray 06. So I'm going to put that in just so we can see it on the VFR map if we want to cheat, basically, and pull up our VFR map while we're flying. Now, something you can actually do in Microsoft Flight Sim is change your flight type. You may have done this before with like IFR flights. You can actually change this to VOR to VOR. So it'll try to take you from one VOR to another. But in our case, we're not really crossing over a VOR during our flight, so it doesn't recommend one, but we're still going to use one to navigate. Can I explain SkyVector? You saw a warning that it is not for simulators. SkyVector, as far as I know, is a real life tool that people use for real world flying. So you can definitely use it in the sim. A lot of times sites will give warnings that they're not for real world use, but SkyVector does not give that warning. But a site like Navigraph, for example, is just for simulator use. And I think it's because they get deals with like Jeppesen to show charts, but those charts get outdated and stuff. But yeah, that's a disclaimer for a place like Navigraph, is that they're not for real world use. But I'm pretty sure, so my partner flies, she has her private, and she flies, and she'll use SkyVector sometimes. She'll use, she was using SkyVector more, now she's on ForeFlight most of the time, but as far as I know, this can be used by real world pilots. Is there any way from the chart to know how far away you'll be able to intercept the VOR? Not that I know, but VORs have like a maximum range of like 200 miles. But I think that's why it's a good idea, like when we plan these flights, to have multiple VORs that we can use, just in case one you lose one of them. But they are susceptible to like radio interference, you know, like line of sight. If you have a huge mountain range or terrain between you and the VOR, like you'll probably lose reception. So this one's only 55 miles away from us. So I'm hoping that once we get in the plane, I'll tune into it and we'll find out if it's in range or not. If it's not, then it's ruining my plan. So I should check that first. So we're going to load in here at 1 Fox Alpha 9 in Florida. I'm on US West with multiplayer on if you guys want to fly along. And then I'm going to load in on the ramp here. Looks like there's only one spot, so if anyone comes, we're going to be pretty crowded. And then I'm flying the Cessna 172 Skyhawk, not the G1000 one. This is a deluxe edition plane, but if you want to do it and you don't have deluxe, then you should pick the Cessna 152. The 152 has 2 CDIs in it and 2 navigation radios, just like the 172, so it'll be similar. Except you won't have autopilot, sorry. I'm just doing it with this because the autopilot makes it easy to catch up with chat and stuff like that. All right, so I'm using the assisted checklists, which are my favorite thing ever. You guys might know of the Control-E shortcut if you're on PC that'll start the engine up. I've had problems with that before, so I tend to use these checklists. And if you want these checklist options, you can go to assistance options. And then under here, if you go to piloting, the assisted checklist option is the third one down right here. If you turn that on and then go back to your checklist, you'll get these auto-complete buttons. So your co-pilot will run the checklist for you. So it's just kind of a little more official way to get your plane started up by following the checklist, assuming that it has a good set of checklists. Some sites give the not for simulator warning if they have a way to file flight plans. Oh, so you don't file them. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I do not use an account on SkyVector. The flight plan thing, yeah, there is a button to save it. I don't know if you can like actually file a flight plan or not, but anyway, yeah, don't do that. I don't even sign in. I don't even have a SkyVector account because I'm afraid of doing things like that. So yeah, I totally get what you mean, Arthur. The code for the airport is 1 Fox Alpha 9. 1 Fox Alpha 9er. 1 FA 9 in Florida. All right, after starting engine checklist, and I think at the bottom of this checklist is when we turn the avionics on. Yeah, middle of a field. What? I hear thunderstorms. I guess it's out there. All right, the Garmin's starting up. I am using a mod for the Garmin that I linked, but it doesn't really matter. All we need this for is for our nav radio, to tune into our nav radio. So if you're flying the 152, this will look a little different for you. You'll have a comm and a nav radio. You'll have two of them near each other. So for you, you're gonna dial in using the right side of those radios. The top one on the right side is going to be connected to your top CDI right here. And then the bottom one will be connected to the bottom CDI. And on the 152, you'll have two that look like this. On the 172, we have this single needle version of the CDI on the bottom one here. You can actually file using SkyVector. Yeah, do not do that. Hey, Chris, what peripherals? I use the Airbus side stick, the TCA Airbus side stick. I like it, except the rudder, like the Z axis, went on the fritz only after having it for 3 months. So I can't use the twisting capability for that. And I'm temporarily using the Logitech throttle quadrant because my Honeycomb Bravo, 2 of the buttons didn't work. So I sent it back for a replacement. And then I have the MFG crosswind pedals. And I actually, this is going to be fun today. I actually swapped out the pedals for these new short ones. I forget who, but somebody in the YouTube comments told me that there are new pedals for it. So I swapped the pedals out for these smaller ones, but they're really, really hard to break with. Like I have to like almost sit up out of my chair and like put weight on them. It's kind of ridiculous how hard they are to press. All right, anyway, let's get started with this. So we're going to dial in the first VOR. So the VOR, I'm going to see if this VOR down here to the south is in range. And if we look at the compass rose, something that's kind of tricky about the VORs is that each of them have like kind of a slight variation in their where their 0 direction is, their 0 radial or their 360 radial. So the best thing to do is actually to look at the compass rose itself. Because if you draw the line with SkyVector, it's not necessarily going to draw the line correctly based on that VOR. This is something I was like reading about last week, and part of the reason why I stopped making the video. I kind of need to rework how I'm going to do it, but I was getting super confused because I was using a radial at a really far distance to try to fly over, like we're going to do today, to try to fly over another airport. So over here, once we get flying, we'll tune into this one, and we're basically going to use both at the same time. But and you don't have to do that if you don't want to. The simplest thing to do is just fly towards this VOR, and then we could try to find some landmarks that we go over until we find the airport. But this one will take us relatively close to the airport. But because we want to be precise, what we want to do ideally is also figure out when we get to this VOR. And then basically we can just make a left-hand turn to go towards this radial of this VOR, this 312 radial right here. And when I say radial, for you guys that don't do VOR stuff at all, a radial really is just picture a line coming from the VOR in every direction, kind of like this line that points to 0. That would be the 360 radial. They say 0, but you know it's north, so 360 magnetic north. Picture one of those lines at every single degree all the way around the compass rose. Those are the radials. So when you talk about VORs, you talk about them in relation to radials. So if we're at this VOR, say our plane is right here where this VOR is, this little icon here, and we're flying on a course of 360, so directly north, what we would say is that we're flying outbound and we're tracking the 360 radial, meaning we're staying right on that radial and tracking it. So staying right on that course outbound. And the VOR is what's telling us that we're on that radial. So if this VOR is slightly left or right of magnetic north, it's not 100% accurate. It could be 1 or 2 degrees off. So we could end up flying a little to the right. Like if we did it with sky vector, it might be slightly off from what the VOR thinks the radials actually are, or what the VOR radials actually are. So I guess another way to say that is like, so if this VOR is this VOR thinks that this is 360 where it's pointing, but in reality, 360 might be 1 or 2 degrees to the left or to the right. And that's kind of on a VOR by VOR basis, is my understanding. And you can actually see that in writing. If you just look at the Victor Airways, you'll see a Victor Airway connecting one in one direction on a radial. It'll dial it. Here, let me show you. Yeah, so here's one. So from this one, see how it says 228? And we're going southwest, right? And these Victor Airways, these blue airways, connect 2 VORs. This one ends in an 8, right? And if we're going down here, look at the one on the other side. It says 051. You would think that the radial would be 048, would be the reciprocal of 228, would be 048. But this is not 048, it's 051. So that like 3-degree difference, what I was reading about last week, just like trying to really nerd out and figure this stuff out, that difference is because of the variation in where that VOR is pointing as its magnetic north. So there's a variation between each of them. So basically what this means is it's more accurate to fly outbound from this one on this VOR's 228 radial. We fly outbound, and then the inbound radial on this VOR would be 051. So we're on this radial. If we flew 228 all the way down, we would be a few degrees off, right? We'd be 3 degrees off. So it's better when you're flying inbound to use the inbound VOR, if that makes sense. So that variation was really confusing me last week, and I hadn't read about it before, but I feel like it's like really kind of important to understand. So that's one of the things I need to put in my next video. How did I get to 4.8? Oh, there's a trick you can do for, yeah, you could subtract 180. Yeah, 228. I'm going to double check that my shortcut's working. Is 48, but the easiest way is to do a -2 + 2 trick. So if it's a 2, you subtract 2 to make it 0. And then because you subtracted for the first number, add for the second number. And then you always leave the last number alone. So you can also think of it as if just ignore the 8, ignore the last number here. So 2, we take 2 and subtract 2 from the first number, so we get 0, 2. And then 0, 2 is just 2, so you add 2, so you get 4. So if we do that for another one, 0, 5, 1, if you have a 0, you don't want to subtract 2, right? You don't want to be negative, so we add 2 instead. So you add 2, so you get 2, and you take the 5 and you subtract 2, 3. So you get 2, 3, 1. So that's a quick trick to get the reciprocal. So you can just go around and practice that on different ones. So 3, 2, 8. You subtract 2 and then add 2 again, so you get 0, 4, 8. There are some tricky ones, like where you basically have to pair the first 2 numbers and think of it as 32. because let's see, let me find an example here. Yeah, the +2 -2 trick is really useful. And I'm really bad at math. I don't want to add or subtract 180. I'm just trying to find another Victor Airway. So 080, that's an easy one because it's 260. Anyway, I think you get the point. There are some where you basically have to think of the first two numbers as a 2-digit number, because when you subtract them, you'll get like, say, it'll end up being like a 20, and you'll have to subtract down to 18. It'll go from 20 to 18 when you subtract 2. So if it has a 0 for the second number and you need to subtract, yeah, you'll have to also remember the first number. Anyway, even if they were both saying the same radials, the inbound will always be more accurate due to the cone. Oh, you mean like when you get closer to it? Right, right. Exactly, yeah. So what Kevin's talking about is, you know, if we're really far away, so this is the Labelle VOR. If we're really far away from this, you know, say we're way out here in the ocean, flying over the ocean for some reason, and have that in range. The further we are away from it, the less sensitive the needle is going to be on our instrument, because we're so far that it's not going to really change much because we're so far away from it. We'd have to be quite far off course for the needle to be moving. But as you get closer and closer and closer, you know, and you're over here, the needle is going to waver really quickly one way or the other because you're so close, so it'll be sensitive. So if you just follow the outbound radial, the further and further you get away, the less precise it is. So that's why you want to follow the nearby VOR, the one you're closest to and the one you're going inbound to. That's also a reason why, like this, for example, if we use the VOR up here somewhere, and tracked it outbound, like the further away it was, the less accurate it would be. So this will be, this VOR will be accurate, more accurate the closer and closer we get to it. We'll be more precisely on this course. All right, sorry guys, this is a lot of talking, not a lot of flying. All right, so back to the VOR, back to the chart here. So the VOR we're gonna use is Punta Gorda. So I'm gonna dial in 110.2. And then right next to it, it has this identifier, PGD. So that's the identification code of the VOR. If you're in the Cessna 152, you can identify this by using this Morse code pattern. So right here, the dots and dashes, that's Morse code spelling out PGD. It's spelling that code out for you. And so you can look at this and hear, listen in for this on your NAV1 radio or NAV2 radio, whichever one you're using. So in the 152, you'll actually push a button, and we'll do it in ours too, in the 172. You push a button on your communication panel to listen to the navigation frequency you're tuned into with your nav radio. So you'll listen to this pattern, and that's how you identify and make sure you're tuned into the right VOR. In our case, with the 172, it has a Garmin in it, and it'll decode that for us automatically and display the letters. So we'll see that. All right, so all we need is 110.2 for now. So I'm gonna go ahead and dial that in. On the 172, the nav radio is this VLOC radio right here. This is nav. So we move the cursor down by pushing this left knob in, and that moves the cursor down to the bottom. Now we can dial in that frequency 110.2. And if you guys are in the one, and then we hit this V button right here to swap it, and nothing is happening. So we might not have it until we take off. So we actually don't have the VOR in range yet. So we're gonna take off first and then we'll see if we get it in range. So then what you can do, if it is in range, is you can use the NAV2 radio up here, NAV1 in our case. So we're using NAV1. This would be NAV2 down here on the 430. And also we can see that the CDI is not alive. There's no flag. There'll be a flag here that says to or from, and then the needle will most likely not be right in the center. So I'm also gonna do one more thing to prepare, and that's the second thing you need to do is not only tune into the VOR, you need to decide which radial you wanna fly on. So in our case, you can see what heading we're gonna be flying basically. Pretty much gonna be flying this heading of 206, that's calculated by SkyVector for us. Now, remember, this is 206 in terms of the map the magnetic north of the map. The VOR, remember, its magnetic north, or its zero radial, may fluctuate a little bit. It may be 1 or 2 degrees different. And that's why we want to use a heading based off the compass rose here, not based off what SkyVector says. This could be a little bit off. But to start, because the VOR is not in range yet, we'll just take off and we'll just fly a heading of 206 to start. And, you know, if there's any wind, we would compensate for the wind. But roughly, we just want to fly a 206 heading. And hopefully, we'll be in range of the VOR pretty quickly. I think once we get airborne, it'll probably be in range. So we'll see what happens once we take off. And then what we want to do is basically fly in this magenta course. So if we fly on this, it'll take us all the way to this airport, Punta Gorda, because there's a VOR on the airfield there. So we could just fly directly to the airport doing that. So in our case, though, what we want to do is you can see the 0 is here at the top. There's the 3, so that's 0, 3, 0. So here we have 0, that's 10, 20 degrees, 25, maybe 26 degrees. So probably 0, 2, 6 would be the radial that we want to be on. So, and remember, even though we're flying to the south, we're coming from the north up here and we're flying southbound, right? We're going to start by flying 206. When you talk about VORs, you talk about the radials. You don't really talk about, I mean, you can talk about your course because we are going to fly a course that's similar, that's almost 206. But what we want to do is we want to fly inbound on that radial. So technically, we will be flying on that radial, but our heading will be the reciprocal of that radial. And that's something that happens when you fly to a VOR. So basically, all we have to do to know the VOR we're going to fly on is look at the one on the opposite side of this. So I said 0, 2, 6. So we can do the plus 2, minus 2 thing. So 0, 2, 6, take the 0 and add 2, so we get 2. And then the 2, 6, we subtract 2 from the 2. So we get from 0, 2, 6 to 2, 0, 6. So 206 is the heading we're flying. It's basically the opposite side of the compass rose. So if you think about everything in terms of the course you want to fly, that works. But in this case, because we're going inbound, we have to find the reciprocal radial, the one on the other side. And that's the one that we're going to dial in. So I'm going to dial that in now. So we calculated, instead of 026, we're doing 206. So that's basically the heading that we want to fly, or the course that we want to fly is 206. So I'm going to dial 206 in on here. So there's 180 on south. Then we have 190, 20, and then that little dot is 205. So one more is 206. So that's 206 about right there. Hopefully that makes sense. So basically, on the top of the VOR is like, you put in basically your desired course, the desired course that you want to fly. But when it comes to talking like in terms of a VOR, you talk about everything in relation to the VOR. So even though we're going to be flying a course of 206, when we're flying inbound, we're technically not on the 206 radial. We're actually technically on the other radial, the one here drawn in magenta. And you can see that that's not 206, it's actually 026, because here's the 0, that would be 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 25, 26 degrees. So we would say that we're flying inbound on the 026 radial. We're on that radial, but our heading, you know, the course we're flying is actually the one that's on the other side of the VOR. But remember, radials come from the VOR outward, not in. So we can't be on the 206 radial because the 206 radial is down here, right? It's southwest of the VOR. So I could see that part's usually the like trickiest part to get over, is just remembering that the radial is based off the VOR. Coming from the VOR is the radial. So when you talk about where you are in relation to a VOR, you talk about the radials, and they're always coming out from the VOR. All right, that was a lot. Let's take off, and I'm not going to do ATC or anything like that. And don't judge me. I'm not gonna take the flying too crazy seriously. on how accurate I am or anything like that. Just focusing on the VOR stuff, so don't judge me. And I don't know where the runway is. This is, I don't know why I always do this to myself, but I prefer to do all this stuff like sitting at parking, you know? It looks like this is probably the end of the runway, and yeah, that direction is probably where we're taking off. It's not really any taxiway. What setting highlights the buttons? That came out, that change happened in Sim Update 5. That happened like 3 weeks ago or whatever. If you reverted back to the legacy interaction model, then that's why you don't have the highlighting. You have to go back to the new, it's called the pilot interaction model. So under general options and then under accessibility, oh yeah, there's the cockpit interaction system. This lock mode is the new mode that they made that works with controllers and stuff. I think it's pretty good even with a mouse. I don't have a problem with it. But if you turn to legacy because you didn't like it, that's why you don't get the highlighting. And then I turned all the tooltips off here. That's where you turn those off. All right, and it looks like our checklist put one flap of tabs, or one notch of flaps in for us. I can speak. I'm just gonna do this taxi thing, taxi checklist, and then our run up checklist. I don't know why, I don't really need to do this. Oh, there we go. I had to test the rudders myself. I don't really need to do this one. Altimeter check. Oh, altimeter check. Yes, there we go. Set the altimeter. I hit B to set it because I'm lazy. And then before takeoff, parking brake released, flap 0 to 10 degrees. We're on grass, so I'm going to do one notch just to make sure that we take off in time. Yeah, and this looks like the runway, I think. So what we're going to do when we take off is, because the VOR is not in range, we're going to fly that heading of 206 here. So we're just going to fly that heading until we get the VOR in range. Once the VOR is in range, then we can fly directly on this magenta line, or similar to this line, that course that we dialed in by changing the OBS knob here. So we said that we want to fly on a course that's flying towards this direction of 206. And then the radial will be the opposite one because we're flying inbound. So, but we are flying that course. And one reason why VORs are awesome is just because, you know, wind is a real thing. So if we just flew a heading of 206, we would get blown off course. We wouldn't know if we were actually on course or not. So that's the reason why VORs are awesome. And GPS too, is because you know you're on that course, which is based on the ground, basically, you know. I always think of a course as something being drawn on the ground that we're trying to stay on. All right, I'm going to try the short field thing with the brakes on. So once we take off, I'll just turn to a heading of about 206. It's weird. The last, I was playing a bit last week, and every takeoff I was doing, my plane was like banking like crazy to one side. I'm curious if it's going to happen again. Like maybe I just forgot how to take off or something. All right, that one was smooth. I think I just was flying in some places with a lot of wind. I had like crazy crosswinds, and it was really, really hard to take off. And when I did the Piper Warrior stream last week, yeah, I ran into that a bunch of times. That thing, I don't think it was just the Warrior. I think I was just like flying in really windy areas and didn't realize it. So I was just playing pretty casually.
Tampa approach Cessna November 2
Oh no.
India Podma is type Cessna Skyhawk 1 mile south of 1 Foxtrot.
All right, well, I guess I have my assistance option turned on, so whoops. I guess we're getting flight following. So we're gonna keep our eye on this CDI right here to see when the VOR comes alive when we get into range. And I'm also gonna figure out if we're in range just by turning on the nav1 radio. So right over here, I clicked on nav1 so it's lit up. So what that'll do is we'll hear beeps. We'll hear those Morse code beeps when that happens. All right, I'm going to turn on autopilot. Like I said, I'm going to be lazy and use autopilot. That's why I'm flying the 172. And hopefully it doesn't try to kill us. And we're going to actually fly south. So I'm just using the heading bug to get us flying in that heading of about 206. All right, and then I'm going to use vertical speed mode. All right, keep us climbing here. We'll just go up to 3,500 feet. Let's see, we're headed slightly westbound, right? So I think this will be at even thousands of feet. So 2,500 would be like our VFR altitude. And then what's also cool, if you guys have never used the sectional charts, and the VFR charts, there are altitudes or elevations shown all over this for obstacles and terrain. So here you can see all these towers and stuff. They have numbers on them showing their altitudes or their elevations. So this is how you can plan what your cruise altitude would be, is by looking at these numbers. So this big 07 is like a terrain altitude of 700 feet through this area. It's really flat along here, so there's nothing crazy for us to look out for that I can see. The highest thing is like in the 500s. So at 2,500 feet, we're gonna be more than high enough. And then we do have this, like this is kind of cheating, but this will, I just put this here just to show where we're at, but I can hide it for now just so we're not like, so we're really not just looking at the moving map while we're flying, since we're trying to use the VORs. So we do have 110.2 is tuned in, so that's here, Punta Gorda VOR 110.2, and this is not alive. There's no indicator here yet. There's no flag. This will say to or from to let us know if the heading we dialed in will go to or away from the VOR. And then I have nav 1 turned on the radio, so we're just kind of waiting to get into range of the VOR. And that would be maybe another reason to fly a little higher. I mean, it's really flat here, so I don't think altitude's going to help us as much. It might be a good idea to fly up a little higher. So because this VOR is a good like 56 miles or so away, we're not quite in range of it yet. I thought we would be in range right away, but yeah, apparently we're not. So we're going to wait for this to get into range. And so once it gets into range, what we're expecting is, since we dialed in the course we want to fly on already, we should be relatively close to that course already, just because, you know, mattering how far the wind's blowing us off course right now, it shouldn't be too far off when the needle comes in. It should hopefully just be a few notches left or right. And we dialed in that course that we're basically going to fly, that magenta line represents from our sky vector map, and we're expecting to see that needle move to one side or the other, and then we're expecting to see a little flag that says 2 on it, and so that 2 flag is basically telling us that the course that we dialed in here, the bearing, I guess you could call it, is the one that if we fly that bearing or towards that course, it'll take us to the VOR. But it's still not alive yet. And if this VOR had DME, which it doesn't, if it had DME, once it's in range, it would tell us how far we are from the VOR right here with this distance, this little distance field on the left side here. And that varies from plane to plane, like mattering what the avionics are. In the Piper that I flew last week, it had a separate little panel for DME. It was a separate own piece of equipment that was just for the DME measurement. So it was like over to the side. It was just like its own thing. And you could either tell it to use what your nav1 radio was using, or you could give it like a totally different radio frequency to get DME info from. All right, so we're still climbing here. And yeah, I just put on autopilot to take us around that heading of 206. Actually, where's 205? That's 5-6. This one's kind of hard to be accurate with. This is where those tooltips really come in handy, but you don't have tooltips in real life, I guess. So that would be 180, 190, 200. There's 21, so 206 would be right around in here somewhere. All right, we're just waiting for this first VOR to come alive. Now what we could do is try to find one that's closer to us. So there is this VOR right here to the northwest. We could fly using that VOR as well. So if we follow this VOR and follow the Victor Airway coming to the south of it. So this VOR is, where's the name? Lakeland. You can see the label for it is way up here in the top right, way off of the compass rose. Because they, have to fit everything on these maps. These are like, paper maps. Because they have to fit everything on these, sometimes you won't find the VOR name and frequency right in the compass rose. It'll be pushed away. So this is the Lakeland VOR right here, it looks like 116.0. So what we could do also is we could use the Lakeland VOR. And down here you can see these blue lines extending down towards our destination airport, Arcadia, right here. So this is the Victor 7. You can see it's labeled. So that's the Victor 7 airway. And then we can see the radial right here. So that's the radial we would use for that VOR is 171. So I could use this on our second radio right now if I wanted to. Oh, check my NOTAMs. That would be awesome if Flight Sim did that. Does Microsoft Flight Sim do? I just assume that everything always works in a simulator, so I didn't check anything. I didn't check any real world info about it. But for now, we can dial into this one if we want. I mean, this is like the kind of thing you might need to do anyway. Like this might, if this one was inoperative for some reason, this VOR wasn't working, and I think it's just because we're not close enough to it yet. But we would need to use an alternative. So what I can do is dial into the Lakeland one. We can check that out. So that's 116.0 for this one. And remember, we're probably in this area right around here somewhere. Like we just barely got going. So maybe we're down here or something. So the Lakeland VOR 116.0. So I'm going to tune that in on our second nav radio down here. I already forgot the frequency, 116. So I'm dialing 116.0 on the bottom one. And we'll see, so that one came alive. So you see the needle move down here. And then, actually I thought it should show it here on the left. Maybe it doesn't show the VOR info. On the 530, it shows the VOR identifier up here. But anyway, let's listen to nav2 now. So I'm going to turn on the nav2 radio and we can hear the Morse code. And what we can do is identify that this is the correct VOR by listening to this pattern right here. So it's going to spell out LAL in Morse code. So that was right. So it did short, long, short, 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 long, short, long, short, short. So you just look at the dots and dashes there and it matches up. So that's how you identify the VOR. That's one way to do it if you don't have like a Garmin or something that tells you the VOR identifier. If you're flying with one like a G1000 in it, you may have seen that when you tune into like a localizer or something. If you're using an ILS, it'll decode that and put it in the display for you. Do you need to be in VOR mode for it to display info? I don't think so. I think you can change this to GPS. And as long as your nav radio, I can just test it. Actually, I can't test it because we're not actually tuned into this one yet. But I think you can do that. So you could use a VOR as a secondary reference, especially if it has DME, even if you're using GPS primarily. Oh, let me turn that off, sorry. So I click nav2 up here again to turn the nav2 radio off. So we don't have this other VOR in range yet. So for now, we could use the second one. The autopilot though, when I use nav mode on the autopilot, it's gonna fly based on the top one, based on our nav1 radio or nav1 CDI up here. So we could just use heading mode if I wanna continue to use autopilot. If you're flying in the 152, you have to hand fly it. So in this case, if we go back and look at the map again, so we did find from here, if we followed this Victor Airway, Victor 7, that's a radial or a course, but we'll call it the radial because we're using the VOR. Because it's coming out, you know, the radials come out from the VOR, and this one's coming out from the VOR. We can tell that because of the arrow here. That's the 171 radial. So we do the 171 radial outbound. That'll take us right down here close to where we're going at Arcadia. So let's go ahead and dial in the 171 radial. Oh, the top one's alive now. All right, well, let's dial it in anyway for practice. So here I'm going to dial in 171, and you'll see that the flag says from because we're going outbound. Any of these radials that we're choosing now are radials that will be leading away from the VOR. So we just dial in 171. So here's 15, 16, 17, and then 171 right around there. So if we wanted to intercept this course, this blue line right here, the 171 radial, which is the Victor 7 airway, if we wanted to use that for our course, then we would fly towards the way that this needle is deflected. So the first thing to do to intercept them is actually to fly the course at the top. So we would first turn to a heading of 171. And then once we're at that heading, then we would turn to the right or to the west to intercept it. So because the needle is pointing to the west, like towards this side of the compass, this side of the compass has all these directions on it. So we would want to turn towards the west to intercept it. So we would just do that generally at like a 45-degree angle. So if this was, you know, the way we were flying, we would turn about 45 degrees this way. We would fly at like 210 or 220 around there to go and intercept that course. Anyway, our first one's alive now, so we hear the beeping again. So what we could do is, now that it's in range, remember this is this VOR right here, the Punta Gorda. So let's listen to the pattern again. This is the pattern right here. So that's right. So we know we're tuned into the right VOR. So you identify it like that just because there's only a certain number of possible VOR frequencies, and you're just doing that to make sure that you're tuned into the correct one, that you're not picking up some other VOR with the same frequency that you're not intending to tune into. But this one is the right one. So here we have our needle. So this is exactly what we expected to happen. Because we're flying on this, our desired course is, what is this, 18206. So 206 is the radial. Well, technically it's not the radial we're going to fly on, but that's basically the course we want to fly. Technically the radial that we're flying on is the one that's on the bottom of the CDI down here. So this would be the reciprocal down here where this yellow arrow is pointing. And the reason for that is just because of the 2 flag. So if it says 2, and you need to describe what radial you're on, you look at the bottom of the CDI instead of the top. And that's assuming that we have the needle centered. So we're going to center the needle, which means we'll be on that course that we drew. So we'll be on this magenta course. So this is the 026 radial. So see, it's before 3. That's the 5 mark. So it's about 026. So what we want to do is intercept that course now. So there's this acronym called, it's a funny acronym, but it's called TIT-PIT, T-I-T-P-I-T. And what it stands for is, it's basically how to use a VOR. So the first T is to tune. You tune into the frequency of the VOR, which we've done. I is identify. We've done that by listening to the Morse code pattern. And then the second T, T-I-T, the T is twist, which means to twist the OBS knob to your desired course. So in our case, the desired course we want to fly is to the southwest. That 206 course is what we want to fly. And we figured that out just by looking at the Victor airway, or actually there's no Victor airway for this one, but we just looked at the compass rose here and we just calculated, oh, that looks like it's about 026. 026 is this radial, but the course we're flying is southbound. So we just took the reciprocal of that to know which course to dial in at the top. So we dialed in 026. So that's the TIT. We tuned, identified, and then twisted the OBS knob. And then the last 3, PIT, for tit-pit, PIT, the first thing is to fly parallel. So basically you just want to fly the course that's dialed in here. So we'll just fly that heading. We were already doing that. You can see we're just a little bit to the left of 2-1 on our heading indicator. And so now that we're flying parallel to this course, it's just showing us, hey, the course, think of it as a lane on the highway. Like we're on the highway, but we need to shift over 2 lanes to the left. We need to shift over to this lane. So we don't do it by turning our car 90 degrees to the left. We do it by slightly turning to the left until we get into the lane, and then we straighten out again. So it's basically how we intercept it. So the acronym again, TIT, PIT, parallel first, then I is intercept. So now we turn to intercept it. And then the last T is track. We just keep it centered, track the needle, keep it inbound, or keep the needle centered. So I can just turn our, and I'm just doing this with autopilot, but if you're hand flying, you just turn to the left. So I'm just gonna turn us to the left. You can do it like 30 degrees, 45 degrees, but since it's not deflected very far from the center here, I'm not gonna turn us very fast because I don't wanna, jump the lane, jump too many lanes too far over. I just wanna intercept it. So if you look at, if you wanna do a 45, you can look at these little notches on the heading indicator. So if I really wanna do a 45, all I have to do is put the 21 or 206 on this little corner notch right here. That's a 45-degree marker. So you can see the needle's coming in now. So when this needle gets to the middle, we can just turn our heading back to 206 to keep the needle centered. But the wind, the wind's gonna blow us off course here and there. If you're using a plane like this that has autopilot, you can take advantage of the autopilot like I like to do because I'm lazy and it just keeps it more accurate. Hey Blizzard, if you're flying from a radial towards a different radial, how to tell when you intercept the new radial? Do you mean you're going to use 2 different VORs? Okay, so the needle's pretty centered now, so it's actually a little to the right. But what I'm going to do, instead of using heading mode, I'm just going to switch to use nav mode, and I'm going to let the autopilot do it for us. So if you've ever used nav mode on an autopilot, when your CDI or your navigation source is set to GPS, then what this is doing is actually we've set our CDI, our nav source, not to GPS, but in this case to VLOC or VLOC. Or if you're flying one with a G1000 or something, you would change to use nav 1 or nav 2, or sometimes it says localizer 1, localizer 2. It's the same thing, but nav mode will, will fly using the navigation method you've chosen, the navigation source you've chosen. So in our case, VLOC is for VORs and localizers. So we're using a VOR. So it's doing this for us. If we wanted to, if we turn the OBS knob right now, it would turn the plane because we'd be setting a new course that we want to fly. Kind of like if you change waypoints on GPS. So Blizzard, what we're doing right now is flying inbound. So this first flight I'm doing, we're flying from this airport over here. And we're actually, what I'm trying to do is get to this airport right here called Arcadia, just using VORs. So what we're actually going to do now is tune in the second VOR. So I'm going to tune in this VOR, LaBelle. We're going to tune into this one because what we want to do now is see this 312 right here. This is a Victor Airway, and that's the 312 radial coming from LaBelle. It's outbound, right? It's emanating or radiating from the VOR. That arrow is pointing outward. So, and obviously it matches us up with this compass rose here. There's the 33, so that's 330. So this is 312. So what we can do is figure that when we're about on the 312 radial, that's where Arcadia Airport's located right here. So we're going to use this as a second reference. We're flying on this line right now, but I'm going to use that Victor Airway, take advantage of knowing that that's there and that the airport's right there to dial in that radial. So I'll dial in 312. I may even dial in 311 to move it a little further south, but it's nice that it's actually a little bit before the airport. So what we're going to do is tune this in, and we're going to monitor that and know when we cross over that radial. So what we're going to do is dial in 110.4. So down here on my second, for my second nav radio, we're going to go to 110.4. And this just came alive. So this is our second CDI down here. And what we want to do, I'm going to try to slow down. We might have passed Arcadia already. It's not that far of a flight, so hopefully I'm doing this fast enough. So label, here's the identifier, so the Morse code. So we're going to listen to nav2 now. So I'm going to hit nav2 up here, and we're going to listen to that Morse code. So that was right. So listen to the pattern. Short, long, short, short. Now long, short, 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 long. So that matches the pattern, so we know we're on the label, VOR. So what we're going to do now is, remember what we're interested in just knowing, we're not going to navigate using this. We're just going to use this as a kind of an intercept or a cross radial. We're going to find when this radial, we're going to find out when we're on this radial. So this 312 radial from that, when we get on that, we know that the airport's really close by. We know that we can just basically turn to the southeast and find the airport. So we're going to dial in 312, and I'm getting that right here. There happens to be a Victor Airway. Otherwise, we could draw a line from the VOR out to the airport and then look at where it is on this compass rose. So 312 is what we want. So I'm going to dial in 312 down here. So there's 3-1. And there's 312. Oh man, we're almost there. So something that's common with VORs and like when you're navigating with them, you can just figure out where you are, which radial you're on. The rule to doing that is you dial into the VOR, tune into the VOR. And if we want to find out where we are right now, all we have to do is turn this until the needle's in the middle. Let me try to get a little more straight on here. So now the needle is centered, right? So that means that we are on the radial that's it's stealing my mouse cursor. There we go. That means we're on this radial. If there's a from flag, remember the from flag means that we're dialed in, that we're looking at a radial coming out from the VOR, right? Like we tune this until there's a from flag and the needle is centered, and that is how we find out what current radial we're on. So you can see it's moving, right? Because we're flying, but we're roughly on the 308, it looks like. So we're on the 308 radial, which actually means that we are south of the airport. So we've already flown past Arcadia. So this is how we know that we're south of it. If we draw a line from the VOR down here, this is the one we're using for the second CDI there. This is the second CDI. Remember the top one here is this magenta line. That's the course we're flying on, and it's centered, and we're flying to this VOR. So that's what this magenta line is the top CDI needle being centered. The bottom one is based on the other VOR, this one. So relative to this VOR, we are on like the 305 radial at this point. So if you draw a line from the middle of this VOR out on the 305 through that compass rose and find it, we're south of the airport already. We're down here somewhere. We're like down here on this purple line or magenta line. So that's how we're finding out. We're basically just looking at these, like this blue line basically is what we're drawing on the 312. So we know we're past it. So if I dial this to 312, well, it's saying that that radial is towards this side of these directions here. So that radial is actually more towards the northeast of us than it is. It's not coming up. It's actually past us already. So that needle came into the middle and then past us. So we're just drawing a second line, basically. We're using this one to figure out where we are on the magenta line. So what I can do now, I'm just going to cancel our plans for Arcadia just to demonstrate this more, I guess. What I'm going to do is figure out, now we're flying to this airport, so how long until we get to this airport? What I can do is just draw a line between these two. So this is the line that I'm making up now for the second VOR. Remember, we're still flying in from that first purple line we were on, that magenta line. We're flying southbound towards this VOR right here. So this is the VOR we're flying towards right now. And we're still on course flying right to it. But if we draw a line through from this VOR over here through the compass rose, and we look on the compass rose and we estimate what radial this is, we can figure out when we'll be at the VOR. So this is 27. This is kind of hard to read actually because of how it is. What I could do is, this isn't completely accurate, but I could look at this 105 over here and just take the reciprocal. So the 105 here, this 105 that's drawn in by sky vector is actually representing the 105 radial, right, coming outbound from there. We want the opposite of that because we want the one that goes towards that VOR. Now we want the one that comes from this side. So this line is obviously headed mostly west, right? That course is to the west. So if we take the reciprocal of 105, we get 285. This is one of those tricky ones with the +2 -2 trick. So here, normally the trick I said earlier is you add 2 and then subtract 2, or you subtract 2 and then add 2. So here the 1 becomes 3. We add 2 to 1. We don't subtract first because it's a 1, right? We don't want to get -1. So you just add 2 to 1. We get 305. Now we need to subtract 2 from the 0. So to do that, just think of 30 as 30, so it becomes 28, 285. So 105, the opposite of that is 285. So we're flying down here. When we get on the 285 radial of the LaBelle VOR, we'll be at the Punta Gorda airport. So I'm going to go dial in 285 on the bottom one now. So we're using it as a way to figure out our position in the other direction. And the reason why we're doing this is because, well, first of all, you may not have DME capabilities in your plane. If you did, it would tell you right here how far you are from the VOR you're traveling towards. So in this case, we would just see, oh, we're 5 miles away. The VOR we're tuned into does not have DME capability, so we do not get the distance information. Even though we have this nice Garmin in this plane, we don't get it because this VOR doesn't have that capability, the specific VOR. So let's tune in that 285 on this one. So I'm just going to turn this until it's 285. So here's 27, 28, 285 right there. So this line, you can already see it's moving in. It's probably hard to see on the stream, but it's very slowly moving. When this gets to the middle, we're going to be approximately over our destination airport. So we're using the power of the convenience of having 2 nav radios and 2 CDIs to use this one to basically work like a DME for us. It's like a poor man's DME right now. We don't know how many miles we are from it, but if we dial in that radial, we're dialing in this purple line basically from this VOR out. So right now it's saying, we're this far off course. And as we get closer and closer to that radial, that needle will get centered. And when the needle's centered, it's not completely accurate. It's 1 or 2 degrees. And especially if this is 32 miles away from us. So the further away it gets to, the less accurate it is, because the sensitivity of it is, lower and lower the further away you get. So it's like, trying to point at the pupil of my eyeball. If you're standing right in front of me, if you move your finger a little bit, you're way off. But if you stand a mile away from me and you point towards me, well, you're just, yeah, I'm pointing at his eyeball perfectly, whatever. It's a weird comparison, but that's basically how it is. So you can see the needles moving in. So this is telling us when we're going to intercept that radial right here on the second VOR. But yeah, we can expect the airports close in front. I mean, there it is right there. It's right there in front of us. So that's how we can use it as kind of a poor man's DME. It's also how you can use it to find when you're at the intersection on a Victor Airway. So for example, all these light blue lines, these are Victor Airways, and they connect from one VOR to another. So that's kind of how that's an easier way to do it is through Victor Airways, just because they note the radial for you on both sides. So we have the 312 right here, and then when we follow that Victor Airway all the way up to the VOR it connects to up here. Right here it shows a 138. So those are really convenient. Like if there's a Victor Airway between them, it's much easier just because you just look at the radials. And why that's also important is just because the VORs, each VOR thinks of its magnetic north as different from another VOR. They may be the same, but they could also be different. And that's why, for example, these two VORs are so close, but look at the last number, 228 versus 051. They're 3 degrees off from each other. So if you follow 228 outbound all the way to this one, you'll end up to the left or to the right. I'm not sure which way is it, to the north, I guess. You would end up off course. You wouldn't go directly to it. You would want to use the 051 for your inbound radial after you've gone outbound, because each VOR is set up with its own magnetic north that needs to be redone from time to time. So anyway, we're over we should be like, yeah, there's the airport right in front of us. So if we look at the needle down here, it's centered. So you can see that it's a little off, like maybe I chose slightly wrong on the radial. If I twist it one more time, like maybe it was more like this radial, you know, it could be halfway between two radials as well, you know. Could be a 0.5 degree difference or something, but that's how we were able to see roughly where we were. The magnetic variation in the region. Yeah, it's, I think I'm just learning about this too. This level of detail about VORs. Oh my God, I had my flaps up the entire time. Amazing. All right, flaps up. There we go. Whoops. I think I was just reading about this last week because I wasn't 100% clear on this either. Basically, when they install the VOR, you know, they're installing this entire VOR equipment on the ground. And my understanding is the magnetic variation changes very slowly over time. So, you know, airport diagrams need to be updated, airport runway headings need to be updated, all that stuff, they need to be updated. And I think it's, you know, I think we're talking decades. I could be wrong, but I think it's over a long period of time. But what I was reading is that the VORs are really hard to basically recalibrate their magnetic north. So, you know, over time, they'll be out of sync, you know, just naturally they'll become out of sync with what magnetic north is at that moment. But, you know, don't take my word for it because I'm still learning about it myself, but whoa. What? Dude, the lightning is so dramatic in the sim. It's just always like insane. And so you'll notice actually what happened just now, we just went over the VOR. So the VOR we were flying towards, we just passed over it. So it's installed down there somewhere on the field. Because this VOR happened to be on the field down there. It's probably, it could be that right there, or maybe that or that. You don't actually see them unless you buy the airport scenery. But anyway, we just flew over it, and what you can see that's happened now is, I'm gonna put us on heading mode, but we're still flying the same direction, and the needle is almost centered. We're getting a little bit off course just because I turned us. But what happened just now is we flew over the VOR. So we're still headed the same course, right? We didn't change our direction or anything like that. What changed here is now you can see the from flag. So now what it's telling us is that, you know, the airport we just passed is where that VOR is, PGD. So this changed from saying to saying from. The flag went away, the needle pulled really hard to one side, and the flag went away because we flew right over it. Now it's telling us that if we fly this course that we dialed in before, we'll be flying from the VOR. So that's how we know that we're now flying outbound from the VOR. And the radial that we're flying on, if we go ahead and I'll switch to nav mode again, just for the autopilot to take us over to that needle. So we'll turn to the right. Since we're flying 2-1, we're going to turn to intercept it, right? So it's towards our right or towards the west side of the compass. So you would turn towards the west side of your heading indicator with your heading indicator to go and intercept that course again. And now, because we have a from flag, if someone asked you which radial you were on now, you would say, you would look at the top of the CDI. So if the neater is centered and there's a from flag, then the radial that you're on is the one that's on the top of the CDI. So in this case, we would count it, you know, backwards from 2-1. It looks like it's like 4 degrees, 5 degrees. So we were on the 205 or 206 radial is where we are right now. And then the rule about the 2 flag is just that if someone asked you what radial you were on and you had a 2 flag shown here, you would look at the bottom. You're at the bottom of the CDI instead of the top. Now we're still flying that direction, right? We're still on a course of 206. That's what we're flying. We're holding 206. But let's see. This is the, oh, that's the Lee County one. Whoops. Where's the one we're at? Up here. So right now where we are is not, we're not north of it anymore, right? We were on the 026 radial. We were up here. Not because it's 026, because the radial itself is where this magenta line is. Remember, every radial is coming from the VOR. From the VOR outward is the radial. So when we're flying a course of 206, but the radial we're on when we're northeast like this, or mostly to the north, is this radial. So this is like, you know, this is the 02 radial, 025, 030. But as soon as we cross over and we're flying south, now we're on that 206 radial. So our course is the same. We're just flying the same direction the whole time. But terminology-wise, when you talk about VORs, you talk about the radials, and the radial is always radiating from the VOR. It's coming out like those bicycle spokes, those wheel spokes. Think of them as the spokes. So that's the only confusing part. So that's why when we have a to flag, we look at the bottom. And when we have a from flag, you know, we only look at the bottom to simply describe which radial we're on. That's the convenience of that little arrow on the bottom there. So we can just look at the bottom and say, oh, there's 030, so that's about 025, right? Because north would be 360 or 000, 10, 20, 25. So we're on the 026 radial right now. Or we're not right now. That was on the way in. Now that we have a from flag, we're on the top one. Hopefully that makes sense. Just remember, think of them as physical things, whatever works for you. Think of them as spokes on a wheel. Think of them as highways, one lane highway in every single direction from the middle of the VOR outward. Which lane are you on, you know, which radial are you on? And just think about where you are in relation to the VOR. Like if you're up here, you can't be on the 180 radial because you're north of it, right? You're flying directly south, you're flying a 180 course, but if you're up here, you're not on the 180 radial yet. You're still on the 0 or the 360 radial all the way until here. Now you're flying on the 180 radial. That's the main confusing part about them. So another thing you can do, like a common thing to do, is just figure out what radial you are on of a VOR. So we've been flying south for a bit, so we're probably like down here somewhere. Are we over the water yet? Yeah, we're coming up to the water here. So we're coming down to this area where it says St. Petersburg and like this area right here. So what we can do is, here's another VOR right over here, right? You can barely see it, but it's got this compass rose. You can kind of see it around this area. There's is that a Charlie airspace right around this area? So it's kind of interfering with our visibility, you know, us being able to see this. But if we look around, we can see this. Here it is, VORTAC, Lee County, 111.8. So something we might do is I'm gonna just turn our autopilot to heading mode. So let's dial into that Lee County VORTAC. So VORTAC is, from our perspective, it's more like a VOR DME. The TAC part is TACAN, that's used by the military. But for civilian aircraft, you can use a VORTAC, and it basically works like a VOR DME for you. So it'll tell you, you know, you can fly to it, fly from it, but it'll also give you DME info. So it'll give us the distance information. So 111.8, so I'm gonna change our nav radio to 111.8. So here's 111.8. So this is gonna flip over to that VOR. So now what we can do, and a question someone might ask you, is which radial are we on right now for the Lee County VORTAC? Well, we just dialed in, we tuned into the VORTAC. So we're tuned into Lee County. We can identify it. So here's the Morse code. So we'll identify it really quickly by turning on nav1 radio. And that's correct. So that matched the pattern right there. And now the trick to finding what radial you're on is just turn this until there's a from flag and until the needle is centered with a from flag. Okay, roughly, see it's moving because we're pretty close to it. So right there, we're on the 305 radial roughly. So if we draw 305 from here, here's 30. Here's 30 right here. See, I'm crossing over this part right here, 30. So 305 is right here. So we're somewhere on this line is where we're located. So we're probably about to be right over this Pine Island thing soon. So if I look out of our window, we should be coming up over that island right now. So it's just right here in front of us. So we pretty much can just estimate our position that way. So that's the trick to finding which radial you're on. It's really simple. You just center the needle with a from flag using the OBS knob. So you can see how close we are to it because of how quickly the needle's moving, right? Like we're constantly changing changing what radial we're on, you know? So we're basically just flying south through here. And if you can visualize a line, like all, you know, dozens and dozens of lines, one for every course coming from that VOR, like shooting out towards us like light, like in all these radio signals, all these radio waves, you know, picture each one of those lines is the radial, just all those spikes coming out from it. We're just flying all along all those right now, and we're just keep checking which one we're on. So if we want, so down here, I think we should probably go in for a landing at some point. So here is the Naples, I don't know, is that the name of the city? It must be the city, Naples Municipal Airport. Here's a VOR with DME called the Cypress VOR, and that is here at the, it looks like it's at the Naples airport, so it's probably on the airfield. And what we can also see here is the teal line coming from here, going up this direction. Oh wait, is that a, what? Q102? Is that a Quebec airway? Why is that shown? I thought that's an RNAV airway. That does, I guess that's not a Victor airway. But anyway, that line is drawn right there for us through that direction, which is nice. It may be part of an approach. That could be why. So here, if I just look at the compass rose, we have 300, 31, 32. It's a little before 32, maybe 319. So 319 is the radial right here, right? Coming from that VOR is 319. So if we want to fly to it, we want to fly southeast in our course, we would just use the reciprocal course for that, because we don't want to fly away from the VOR. We want to fly to it. So instead of the 319, that would be flying to the northwest, we do the opposite. So 319 becomes 3 minus 2 is 1, 1 plus 2 is 3, so we get the 139. So we want to fly on a 139 course to get to that. So let's, first I'm going to dial in 139 so I don't forget that. So here's 12, 139, right around there. That's 13, that's 14, so that's 139. And now we're going to switch over to that VOR DME, Cypress 108, right there, 108.6. So we're going to tune in 108.6. And there it is. And we have the 2 flag. So we have a radial dialed in, or we have a course dialed in that's going to take us to the VOR. So the way we get to it, if we think of the acronym, I'm going to skip identifying it. So if we use that TIT-PIT acronym, T is tune, I is identify, T is twist. We already twisted the OBS knob. Next is P, which is fly parallel. So we would, I'm in heading mode, but the first thing we would do is fly parallel, which means fly the course at the top here. So just match our heading indicator to that. So a little bit to the left of 150. So over this direction. So you fly parallel to the course first. Then you look at the needle, and that tells you whether you need to go to the right or the left, or technically more towards the south and west side. I like looking at the, it's better to look at the directions that are shown here. So we want to fly towards the south or towards the west, but in this case, the south. So I just look at the needle and look at what is near that, and that's how we intercept it. Is flying towards the right, yes, we will turn right, but I'm thinking of it as, hey, I'm going to fly towards where the needle kind of is pulled towards, which is the south here. So I'm just going to turn my heading indicator over here. I just pulled it 45 degrees, like where that little red marker is, that orange marker, the 45-degree marker. And that'll take us on an intercept. So that's in the TIT-PIT acronym, PIT, parallel, then intercept. So we're going in to intercept it. And then we'll track it in the middle. So this will take us to that airport.
Miami Center, Cessna, November.
So once we, again,
4,500 feet.
this is a little repetitive, but once the needle gets centered, if somebody asks you which radial you were on, remember we have a 2 flag. Our course that we're flying is about 140, right? We're 139. That's the course we're flying. But the radial that we'll be on, because there's a 2 flag, is the one at the bottom. So again, just in case that's confusing, we're flying a course of 140, let's say. So where's the 140 radial? Well, here's the compass rose. If we follow this around, the 140 radial is down here in the bottom right. So down here, this direction is the 140 radial. It's actually right around here. That pink line going from the VOR. That's where the 140 radial is. We're not southeast of the VOR. So we're not on the 140 radial. We're on this blue one here. So that's why what we do is look at the bottom here. It's just a trick. If it says 2 and the needle centered, you're on the bottom. This is the radial you're on, the one at the bottom. So in this case, it'll be the 320, or the 319 actually, which is the which is what's shown, or what we calculated here by looking here. 30, 31. There's 32. It's a little to the left of it, kinda 319. So we're flying a course of 139. But the radial we're on right now in relation to the VOR is the opposite, is the one at the bottom, because we have the 2 flag. So because I'm using autopilot, I'm just going to switch to nav mode instead. Let it track that radial for us. So in this case, because this VOR right here is the type VOR DME, distance measuring equipment, we have the distance information. And it's right here. That last one we were using, or 2 VORs ago, we did not have DME information because the VOR was just a plain old VOR, not a VOR DME, and not a TACAN, not a VOR TAC, a VORTAC, which is a VOR and TACAN combo. So the plain old VOR does not have DME. So you may get no info. You will get no info if the VOR you're tuned into has no DME capability. But in this case, this one has DME, so we know we're 26.9 miles from the VOR. So it's really useful. That means we don't need to do our cross radial, like do the radial from another VOR to figure out our position. We know that we are 26 miles. And then we also know where the VOR is just because we're already on the needle, so we know that it's in front of us. So the 2 flag points up, meaning the VOR is in that direction. If it was pointing down, it's basically like, oh, hey, the VOR is behind you we're flying away from it. Sorry, Varga, just saw your comment. Have I had any crash to desktop issues after Sim Update 5? Yes. I had issues with the Bijan trees, the 4-season trees mod was causing my crashes at first. Basically, any mod that you have can cause a crash in any version of the sim at any time, which is why they always, like the Microsoft team and other people will always recommend that you delete all your community mods, and then one by one you can test them. I can get anywhere between 5 minutes to 2+ hours always getting a CTD. I mean, it's happened to me a couple times. The only thing I can think of is that it's like it could be like liveries, or one day I was having photogrammetry problems actually, and I turned off photogrammetry and it was giving me problems. I tried 3 separate times to load into a specific airport, and I loaded in and crashed 3 times in a row while it was loading to the airport. I disabled photogrammetry in the options in the settings, and I stopped crashing. So in my head, I was like, well, there's something wrong with like the satellite data in that area I was flying at or something. It's just really hard to say. I would start by removing mods. I know it's annoying and you want to use as many mods as possible, like, and they're all great, but they can cause so many problems. Like I really try to keep my mod count low. And that isn't just community mods. It's also the official mods. Even the ones that are in the Microsoft store in the marketplace, those are also, I mean, they're just mods that are installed through the sim instead of you installing them on your own. It's still a mod. A developer still has to update those mods. So even the marketplace mods could be causing crashes. I have that one called like the Spring Summer Trees or something. That the company or dev name is Bijan, Bijan. Those were causing crashes for me. He's updated it since then, but yeah. And if you have a lot of community mods, there is a shortcut you can do. You can just go and rename your community folder. So if you find your community folder, just rename it to like community 1 and then restart the sim. It'll create a new blank community folder for you. Obviously the new one will be empty, but then what you can do is just move your mods like one at a time from your community number 1 folder that you renamed where all your mods are. Just move them one at a time into the new community folder that it created. So you can kind of try one at a time. You know, you don't have to delete all your mods. You can just rename the folder like that. And it's just an easy way to kind of pull in one mod after another. You're using the G1000 NXI. Awesome. Yeah. The NXI is so awesome. Like that's why I keep making videos when it gets updated. So I'll make another video when the next update happens. I'm hoping it happens on Thursday. That's like marketplace update day. So I'm usually waiting until waiting for Thursdays since they update the marketplace to see if there's an update there. But they have a Discord where they announce that stuff. Like they'll post preview videos of what's coming up, and then they'll also they'll post when the next, like when it comes out, when the next version is out. No CTDs, lots of mods. Your computer is not too new. Oh, overclocking. Yeah, I don't mess with any of that stuff. I just leave everything as stock as possible all the time. In this case, I'm using a mod on the 530, but it's not, there's no reason for me to be using the mod. It doesn't really do anything. But if you do use the 530, if you use this plane, which is the Cessna 172, the deluxe edition one, I should probably refill our fuel. We've just been flying forever. If you do fly this plane, this is the non-G1000 Cessna 172. It's in the deluxe version of the game. You can just get it in the marketplace, but this one has the 530 and the 430. And in the 530, you can turn to this nearest page and then turn to this one, nearest VOR, so page 4. And this will just show you all the nearest VORs. And what's really nice is if you push this right knob in and then you go select a VOR frequency, you can just hit enter and it'll put it in the standby field right here. And then you can just activate it with this little V button. So it's really convenient. You can just see where the nearest VOR is. Pretty cool. And we're still 16 miles away. I'm just going to max our throttle here. I'm being very mean to the engine, but we got places to go. Lean the mixture. Forgot to lean the mixture. Look at that, we're redlining it. Awesome. See how fast we can get this 172 going. You're enjoying it over the base G1K. Wait, what is the? I don't know what the 172 is that you're. What did you say? I don't know how I lost your message. Oh, G1000, the 172 JTA. Is that a mod? You're on the Discord. You really enjoy VOR navigation. Yeah, it's definitely more challenging. I mean, you feel kind of like a hacker when you use it. It's pretty awesome. I use GPS all the time, especially with the, you know, the NXI is really exciting. So I've been using the GPS a lot, obviously. We're just flying off the coast of Florida right now. There's a lot of VORs in Florida. There's a lot in California too, like a good cluster of them. So like playing around with the like cross radial stuff is pretty fun when you have that many VORs around you. It makes it just makes it really easy to experiment with them. It's a Cessna 172 mod that replaces the engine. Oh, with the diesel FADEC. Ah, that's cool. That's pretty sweet. Is the Diamond a turbo diesel? I forget what kind of engine the Diamond is. I think it takes Jet A fuel though, doesn't it? So that wouldn't make it a diesel then. Is it the Cessna? Is the Grand Caravan a turbo diesel? No, I don't think, no, because... So does that mean all you have, if it's a diesel with a FADEC, then doesn't that mean you just have a throttle lever and that's it? Kind of like in the Diamonds? So I'm just using the autopilot. We're finishing up some VOR flights here. We just flew around Florida using a bunch of VORs. Caravan's turbine, no jet fuel. What is, I think, is it the Diamond that takes Jet A? I'm pretty sure the Diamonds take Jet A fuel. Oh, is it the TBM that's a turbo diesel? I'm pretty sure the Diamond even says it on the wing. It says like Jet A, like on the wing of the Diamond, the DA40 and the DA62. Throttle only. Real life 172 JTA can use Jet A. Cool. I haven't checked that out yet. It sounds pretty fun. All right, so we have DME, so we're only 10 miles away. I'm just gonna very casually just descend and land this thing. I didn't plan which airport to land at or anything. It looks like there's a runway right there, so lucky us. I'm not doing a very serious landing here, so don't judge my landing. No ATC, no approach procedure. We're doing a straight in. The frowned upon straight in, maybe. I didn't check the wind. I checked nothing. Continental engine. And I'm realizing that I didn't even start our Skypark mission. I just kind of got distracted with using the different VORs and tuning into them. So we had started actually up in this area of the map, up here more. Yeah, I think was it up here? We started up here somewhere, and then we flew down towards this VOR here, the Punta Gorda VOR. We flew to this one, and then we used the LaBelle VOR to figure out en route where we were by tuning into the LaBelle and then figuring out which radial we were on, so we kind of knew our position. And then we turned to fly. Did we fly over this one? Yeah, I think we flew over this. No, we just kept flying southbound, sorry. Then we checked our radial based on this VOR over here, the Lee County VORTAC. And then we finally tuned in this one down here, the Cypress VOR, which is at Naples Municipal. And now we're flying straight into Naples Municipal Airport right here. We're gonna descend a little faster. Yeah, and so the first VOR we used did not have DME capability, but the second one and this final one does have DME. Pretty sure you can tune ADF to a local radio station and listen to tunes, really? This is AM 890 right here. Oh, that's, wait, ADF. Oh, there's the frequency. I haven't used ADF, I don't think at all. But I understand, my understanding is just that this right here, the ADF points to where the beacon is, right? This will just point to where the beacon is. And it's all relative to, it's relative. So you would like turn this to your current heading just to see relative to your heading, which way you need to go. I'm pretty sure is how it works. And that's it. It just tells you where the beacon is. It must be an AM station. Yeah. That would be funny if you could actually tune in. You could tune into a station in the sim and listen. That would be really funny. Yeah, the NDBs. You know, dude, it's so challenging finding the NDBs on the charts. For me, they're so hard to find. I think they're easier to find if you use the low on route charts. Those buildings look kind of broken. Hey, Rusta. Doing your first VOR flight after watching your how-to vid, just did your first VOR transition. Awesome. I'm actually surprised that I'm glad that people still find that video useful, but when I started making that was like I was not very far into simming. And I definitely didn't, I didn't even go over like tuning or identifying the VOR with Morse code. So I definitely want to, what did I just do? Is that oh, that's my trim. So when I'm trimming, it's making those sounds. I definitely want to redo that video. I was working on it before I left last week. We went over the weekend for a wedding. Anyway, I'm glad you found it useful. I want to redo it. I'm trying to work on like an updated version of it, basically, to explain things better and explain more things more in depth. Just because I missed some things. Like a common thing to do is just figure out which radial you're on and a nearby VOR to kind of check your location. And I didn't go over that. I kind of did that a little bit in the stream. But yeah, that one is on my list to redo. I kind of want to redo all of my own videos. And some people in the YouTube comments on that gave me really good tips for, ways I can explain it too. I think somebody had said something about just think of the thing at the top of the CDI as the course that you want to fly no matter what. Like, and then with the radials, that's really the confusing part is the radials, just, remembering that when you have a 2 flag, you look at the bottom if you need to describe what radial you're on, just because of how the radials are all relative to where the VOR is. They don't matter. It doesn't matter which course you're flying or which way your plane is heading. Anyway, if you look at the needle right now, you can see it's off to the right because the VOR is somewhere here on the field, but not on the field, but obviously not right in line with the runway. That would be more like using a localizer. We've just been gliding in this whole time on idle power, pretty much. Always pulls to one side. I can't figure out how to not pull to one side when I land. It seems to happen like in every plane. Number 2 comes out your bottom. The charts are daunting. Yeah, the charts are really busy. Those VFR, the sectionals are really busy. But they give you so much information. It's pretty crazy how much information those things give you. When I was using Pilot Edge at the end of last year, they make really good use of those charts, and they show you, you can just get a lot of information on there, like the center, like when you're contacting the like center controller and departure controllers, like that info is on there too. It's pretty cool. I got to work on the nose wheel part of landing. Like, I feel like there's like a right way to bring the nose wheel down. I feel like I do it. Yeah, the left turning tendencies. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I just need to get used to putting in right rudder when I'm landing, and I don't really do that. The tire is more worn. Oh, the tire is more worn on that, on one side than the other. Yeah, that's it. I'll just blame the plane, not myself. It's definitely not my fault. It's the plane. I agree. Just go park next to this cruiser over here. Aileron steer the plane on the ground during taxi. If it does that, it's because you have the assistance option turned on. There's an option that, yeah, it's called Takeoff Rudder Assist. I'll show you in a second where it is. Yeah, if you just go here to assistance options. So I don't use the true to life preset is kind of hard to use because like I like things like the assisted checklists. But it's right here, this one under piloting called Takeoff Auto Rudder. So if you have that turned on, not only will it do right rudder for you automatically, it will also make it so the ailerons left and right will turn the plane when it's taxiing, as if you're using the rudder pedals to steer it. So just turn this Takeoff Auto Rudder, turn that to off. All right, our flight in the logbook. All right, since I called this the stream Skypark, I should probably do one Skypark mission. I did not do one, even though we flew much further than we had to. We flew from here all the way down to Naples here. So this one was actually tricky to do just because, I mean, we could have done it by the time we were flying over this airport, the Arcadia airport. We'd already passed it, so I just wasn't going to do it. And this one is a fake airport, or for some reason this airport right here, KELT, is not in the Microsoft Flight Sim database. So when I pick one of these in wanting to do VORs, then, oh my God, I've had that on the whole time. You've probably had the smoothest landings ever too. I had it on by accident. I was making a video and going over like some of the options to turn on and turn off. I was like, and I left it on by accident and all my landings were so smooth. I was like, how did I get so much better at landing? It was just because I had the rudder assist turned on. If you disable autopilot, will it retain any rudder trim so when you land it deflects? I believe it will, but I don't know. I also don't know which autopilots do rudder deflection, which autopilot does change the rudder. Normally they just bank to offset the wind. They'll just, they'll crab it. They'll just aim into the wind to compensate for it instead of a rudder adjustment. So I would first check to see if the rudder even got adjusted at all. It might only be manual with the rudder trim. Like if you set it, then it'll be set there. I don't know if it matters the plane and the autopilot. So I mostly fly the smaller planes, and as far as I know, even the TBM, I don't think there's a rudder adjustment with the autopilot. I think it's just, it's only bank and pitch, I'm pretty sure. At least in the sim. Have I ever tried VR? Yeah, I have VR. I've tried it a few times. It's really fun. I can't use it that long. I don't get like a headache or anything, but there's something about it that it's hard to play in VR for like more than an hour. That's kind of my limit with VR, but it's really cool. It's really hard to make out some of the electronics, or the avionics. If you're using the Garmin's and stuff, the text can be really hard to read. You have to like lean in to read it. So that's kind of tough. But I mean, it's really, really fun. Like I've had really good traffic pattern stuff in VR compared to what I do without it. It just feels so natural. Like just turn your head to the left. Like it's really cool. And I feel like I can judge distance and altitude better, like when I'm coming into land, when I'm in VR. It's really cool. HTC Vive. The Reverb G2 is nice. I originally got the Reverb G2. I ended up having some issues with it with my computer, even though my computer's only about a year old. The main problem I had is it wasn't working, and it took me so long to figure out why. I had to change a setting in my BIOS to get it to work. So if you get the G2 and you have a 3000 series NVIDIA card, you have like a 3070, 3080, 3090. I had a problem with my, I have the 3080 and I had a problem with it. I had to change a BIOS setting for my video card to get the VR to work correctly. Since I had all those problems, it wasn't the Reverb's fault. And the Reverb is really good for Flight Sim because you don't use the control, like the hand controllers. You use your mouse and stuff still. I switched to the Valve Index, which is quite a bit more expensive, but I play some other VR games with some friends here and there, and I wanted the really responsiveness from the controllers. The controllers are a lot better on the Index. It's more expensive, but you can do like, they detect each finger that you're using, you know, so you can like do full hand movement and stuff. But the Reverb is really good it's a really good value. Most autopilots should provide turn coordination and will add some rudder inputs. Only aircraft you've worked on may not be modeled. Yeah, I'm not sure. I only know the sim, and I haven't paid too much attention to whether it does the rudder trim or not. But I think a lot of the planes I fly don't even have rudder trim. You know, I fly like the 172 and the Grand Caravan. I think the Grand Caravan has rudder trim, but I don't think the autopilot messes with it. Could be wrong. Let me try to find one more flight before I call it a night. I'm pretty tired because I usually stream earlier than this, but I was out of town for the weekend for a wedding. We went to Idaho. We went to like Coeur d'Alene in Idaho for a wedding. It was great, but yeah, you know, anytime you take a plane, we took 2 legs to get out there, and then we got a direct on the way back. But so I'm a little tired. So I got on later than usual, and I'll just do one more flight real quick and see if we can find another one with VORs. Mainly you want the reduced screen door effect. Oh yeah. Lighthouse is mounted on the wall for tracking. Yeah, I have 2 of those base stations with the Index, and it is that is one of the disadvantages. Like if you turn around for some reason, you're playing some game, you know, or you want to turn all the way around and you don't have a base station behind you, it doesn't work. So the Reverb, because it has the 4 cameras or whatever, it just works on its own with no base stations. You just have the Reverb and the control and the hand controllers, which is cool. I do not fly in real life. Nope. I'm just a sim dork. I've only been simming for about a year and 3 months or so. My partner, she flies. She has her private, and she's working on her instrument rating right now. So I'm just kind of riding on her coattails. So I got the simulator for like her and just to learn about flying because I knew nothing about it. So I'm relatively new to simming. But I just threw up some videos last year, and they did decently, and people seem to like them. So I'm still making them, and it's a good time. Everyone's been really supportive. So, hey, if it helps, I'll keep doing it. If I'm teaching people horrible things, then I'll stop. If I get to that point, hopefully that's not going to happen though. I try to do my research and try to know what I'm talking about in the videos. But I will definitely admit when there are things I know about and don't know about. And some of my older videos are funny because like I realized in one of them I called the CDI the ILS instrument for some reason instead of just calling it the CDI. I was like, oh, that's cringy. Why did I call it that? Because I was still learning myself. Sorry, this is taking a while. Let me find one in California just because I know there's a lot of VORs out here too. And hopefully I can find one. We can do like a quick flight with a VOR. 65 miles. Santa Margarita Ranch Airport. I think there's going to be several VORs over here, I think. So let me map this on Sky Vector really quickly. Okay. So we're going from 4-3 Charlie November to KSAM. Invalid airport. What? This has happened to me twice now. If you crash during VOR navigation, I'm telling the NTSB about KIP. That's my biggest fear. I live up north in Chico. Good VORs around, especially if you go north to Oregon. Oh yeah, I could go more north. Yeah, I'm just bad at, because I live in California, I'm always like flying around California. I try to vary it up. For my videos, I'll like actually just, a lot of the time I'll just do this and find a route at a distance with like an ILS or like whatever I'm actually looking to do, and just pick something randomly to just try to vary it up a bit. Portland? It's weird. It's not finding some of the airports that I'm putting in SkyVector. 260R. So 260 or 260? It looks like 26. I mean, it's going to be OR, right, for Oregon. These smaller airports with codes like that. And KKLS. I mean, it's just, oh, there. Wait, now I found it. Wait, that's the wrong airport. What? It just picked a random airport. Ah, SkyVector. You can't land IFR with a G1000. ILS heading is stuck on north. Oh, Scott, you must be using the NXI, right? Use the course knob on the right side. It's the triangular shaped knob on the right side of the PFD, and turn it to the approach course. I think it's a bug. Yeah, it defaults to 000. So if you look near your HSI, you'll see it say course, or it'll say CRS 000 in magenta, or sorry, it'll be in green in your case, I guess, for an ILS. Turn the triangular course knob and put in the final approach course. The approach course will be shown on the map view of the approach document, the approach plate, or it'll be in the very top, in the top section of the approach plate. It'll have the approach course just written out in text. So just dial that in. It should work. Used to love visiting the cockpit on civilian flights before they changed it after 9/11. I got to visit one when we left. I like posted a photo in Discord. I was so stoked. It was like a regional jet. Instrument fitter in the Australian Air Force. Always good to see the systems working in real life. Wow. That's cool. I don't know. When I sat in that cockpit that I posted the picture of, like, it was like kind of a slow day or something, and I was like giddy and excited to like, all right, let's let this man child into the cockpit. It was really cool to see it. Just sit down and actually look at the cockpit of the. It was an Embraer 175 L, I think, is what we were in. Sorry guys, I'm talking a lot. Let's do a flight here. Sorry, I just like chatting with you guys. But I know I should do another flight. Someone's going to like watch the VOD later and be like, when is the actual flying? I'm having trouble finding these airports, though. That's the problem. 76 miles. I don't want it to be too long of a flight either. And it's hard because I don't know if there's a VOR nearby until I look these up. 5WA8. Okay, I found that one. And KSHN. All right. Is there a VOR? All right. There are two VORs. Oh, we can do the cross radial again. Cool. So we plan through this VOR. And then also plan through this. Let's see. I could do HQM. And then put in this VOR. Olympia. Kind of like that. Okay, so this one has a Victor Airway, but that goes right out to the airport already. That's cool. Okay, so we're flying from this airport, 5WA8, over to this one, Sanderson Field. But we have a Victor Airway right here, so we can just use this VOR. Oh man, how do I pronounce that? Oh no, dude. Instagram? No, I just only do YouTube. And then Discord. I'm really, really bad on I do not use social media personally. I just don't use it. Like all my friends, I just text them. I kind of don't like social media. I feel like it. I don't know. I just use texting. But anyway, I'll do a post on YouTube sometimes, and then I'll just post in Discord too. There's like almost 100 of us in the Discord now that chat every now and then, so it's kind of fun. Okay, so here, this one, so we're going to use this. I don't know how to say this. Hoquiam? Hoquiam? I know, dude, all the like Washington city names, some of them are so hard to pronounce. I have friends from there that will like listen to me try to pronounce things and just make fun of me. Anyway, we go from Hoquiam. I have no idea. I'm sorry to anyone that lives in the Northwest that knows how to say these, but anyway, we'll take this VOR HQM. We'll take this Victor airway right here, Victor 27. So we just follow the outbound radial 049. That goes straight to this airport. And then what we can do is use the Olympia VOR right here to find our cross radial. So wait, is this what type is this? So is that VOR DME? No, I forget what type that is. I know there's 3 icons. Anyway, I think this is not the basic icon. The basic one doesn't have those on the end. I think this might be a TACAN, in which case we'll have DME. So luckily, flying the 172 will actually have DME, so we can just measure out how many miles it'll take from here. So, and just look at the DME. So we could just put HQM in over like this. So 45 nautical miles from the VOR to our destination airport right here. So we could just measure that with DME because we have that. But if we were, oh yeah, Vortac, I think that's right. Hoquiam. Oh, it's Hoquiam. Hoquiam? That makes sense. And then, but I'll do the cross radial thing again just for practice. So this VOR is also close. So what we can do is add this one and then estimate which radial we'll be on when we get here. And we can't just use this 132, or we would use the reciprocal of that, because 132 is from this airport, obviously going on a 132 course to this VOR. But the opposite would be, up here, we can just use the compass rose. So there's 300, 305. It looks like 307 or so. So when we get to a 307 radial from the Olympia VOR or the Olympia Vortac, then we should be over the airport. Or we could just plan to look out further, like say when we get over this area, we could just plan a radial in advance. So say dial in the 290 radial as our checkpoint. That would be right over in this area near this lake. All right, so we have an actual flight. So we'll do this one. Oh, it's the opposite. Oh no, is it the opposite direction? Crap, I did it the opposite direction. All right, so we're actually going the other way around. So in this case, that makes it a little easier. I mean, we'll head to the VOR, and then it's just north of the VOR. But there are several airports here. Yeah, our destination airport is this one out here. Whoops. So in this case, I guess what we can do is we can just take the Victor 27 still to the VOR. Like we can just get towards, like we'll come in on this radial. What's that going to be? I guess we'll just do the 2 radial. So instead of the 049, we'll do the 269 inbound radial, 269 course to get to this. So we'll be on the 049 radial until we get close to this. And then we can just, I guess what we would do is once we start getting close, we would dial in which radial intercepts the airport. So this one, if I just draw the line out, I mean, it's going to be so close that we can just do it visually, I guess. So that wouldn't be the 166, but there's 33, 34, 346, I guess. Yeah, that looks accurate to the compass rose too. So the 346 radial. All right. So I'm actually going to do a Skypark mission and remember to start it this time. KSHN. All right, and then I'm gonna, just for our reference, I'll put in the other one since we have GPS, just so we can see it on the map if we want to. 5WA8. Hogan's Corner. And then I'm gonna start at the runway. So we can, every time I do this VOR to VOR, basically, this only seems to work if you have VORs like close to your intended, close to your course, basically. It's not gonna add like, it's only going to add them as GPS waypoints pretty much is the only thing this VOR to VOR thing does. So it's not really that useful. And then let's make it daytime so we can see pretty stuff. And 172. I'm going to do the 172 again just so I can be lazy and use autopilot. All right, so yeah, we're going to take off from here. So this is actually our departure airport.
Tower Cessna November 21 Kilo India Papa ready at runway 23 west departure. Cessna November 21 Kilo India Papa altimeter 29 wind 23.
So here's another example where, so what SkyVector is doing is drawing its course based on its known magnetic north of like the whole map, the whole world basically, I think. And the VORs can have a variation as to where their magnetic north reference is. So, did I start the mission? No, not yet. Thanks. Load the handmade. What are we taking? Handmade paintings and drawings. Excellent. So I realize what we can, what we can do is fly to this VOR, but it from the VOR to the airport is only 6 miles. So I'm trying to think like we could fly to the VOR and then just fly north from there and find it. We won't even need the radial. I mean, 6 miles, we'll probably be able to just see it. I don't know how small it is, though. I should probably look at some of the airport information. Okay, so it's asphalt, 3,500 foot runway, or 3,600 feet almost, and 42 miles. So we will have DME capability on this too, so... All right, so anyway, we're flying inbound, not on the 049 radial. We'll be on the radial 049, but we're gonna, we put in the opposite of that for our course because we want to fly southwest. So 229 for our course. And then the VOR is 117.7. So I'm gonna turn the map off just so we don't cheat. And then up here, change it to VLOC mode because I'm going to use the autopilot. And then change this to, what did I say, 1117? 1177. 117.7, there we go. And it's not in range yet. So when we take off, we're just going to fly a heading towards that. So we're just going to fly that, say 232, that's fine. I'm going to bug that here. Oh, we're already heading that direction, sweet. Perfect runway direction. So we're just going to fly that heading until we get that VOR in range. And then we're flying... Oh, did it give us... Okay, yeah, it's not IFR. VFR flight plan. We're flying westbound, so we go evens. So we'll go 2,500. I don't think there's any crazy terrain between us. Any crazy obstacles. Yeah, so up here to the north, there's 3,400. There's like a tower and some mountains up there, but I don't see anything here. 451 feet, 348, it's very flat. Over here, 1,300, a tower, 1,400 right there. So 2,500 looks good. More than 1,000 feet over any of the nearby obstacles. And then we're going to use heading mode once we get going. So I'm so lazy. All right, and I started the mission. Yes, we started it. All right, I'll remember to put the flaps up this time. I assume they're one notch down. I think it starts you with one notch down when you start on the runway. Yeah, it does. And we're just gonna fly straight pretty much. Very exciting. So it makes sense that with these mountains in front of us that the VOR might not be in range. All right, got the flaps coming up.
November, 21 Kilo India Papa, continue for west departure.
Trimming it out. Continue for west departure. All right. Oh, the VOR is alive now. So the needle just woke up. So there we go. So I'm gonna be lazy and turn off the autopilot. Heading speed, vertical speed mode. There we go. All right, and now we can. So I love autopilot, so now I can just focus on doing this. So instead of 049, we put in the opposite course of that. So we'll be on the 049 radial, but we dial in 229. 2,500, yeah, just the thousands. So in thousands of feet, when you're going eastbound, you go odd in the thousands. And when you go westbound, you go even. And then I added the 500 because when you fly VFR, you add 500 to it. If you're on IFR, then it's normally the thousands, the straight thousands. So 2,500 would be like a legit VFR altitude. All right, so we're gonna dial in 229 here. All right, so there's 22. Here's 23, so 229's right around there. We're pretty much smack right on it already. So this is a kind of a boring VOR example because we're just like straight on to the, we're just like on course already. That's so boring, sorry. All right, nav mode, let the autopilot do it. I was, when I was trying to do the VOR video again, that is a steep turn. That feels like a steep turn. I mean, it says it's standard rate, but that, for some reason that felt really steep. Oh, it's all good, Packet. No problem, man. Yeah, by even, I just mean in the thousands of feet, an even number. And then, yeah, so westbound is, I just think east is odd. So east is odd, west is even. And then, yeah, if you're VFR, you just add 500 feet. I don't actually know if it's that way worldwide or not. I know it's that way in the US. But maybe that is a worldwide thing. I should turn off the auto ATC, but a video on this. Oh, using this autopilot. I have an old video about this autopilot. I do have an old video about it. You can find it. It's a little, it's like one of my first videos I made, I think. So it's getting a little dated, but I think it's still helpful. I kind of want to refresh all my old videos just because I think like my production quality is a little better now. Like I've gotten better at putting in like little graphics and highlights and stuff like that. And I didn't do that in those early videos. They were all just done with like one take. I just like hit record and just went for it and tried to not say So the newer ones are a bit more polished than the older ones. And the sound quality is better and stuff like that. But yeah, this autopilot's pretty capable actually. Like it has vertical speed mode. There's no flight level change mode on this one. So it's just vertical feet mode or a vertical speed mode. So you choose use the up and down buttons here to choose your feet per minute. And then it has, you know, approach mode. You can do reverse course if you're doing a back course, which I don't think I've ever done a back course ILS approach or localizer approach. And then heading and nav mode. So it's pretty easy to use. The one tricky thing with it is when it comes to the altimeter, it has its own altimeter setting down here that you get to with this baro button. So if I hit baro, you can see the default is in hectopascals. So that's not used in the United States. We use inches of mercury. So if you click and hold baro, it'll change it to inches of mercury. And now you can see 29887. So it has its own independent barometric pressure or altimeter setting. if you hit B, I just hit B on my keyboard, B like Bravo. I use that shortcut a lot, probably to a fault, to update my altimeters. So when you do that, it will actually update both of them. So you can see that this is 2987, as is this one. So that shortcut's really nice because it'll update them. Otherwise, this autopilot unit will be using a different barometric pressure setting, and so it'll climb you to a different altitude than is on your altimeter up here. But yeah, that's just something to know. So if you use the B shortcut, it's really good. Thanks, Grumper. Appreciate it. Did some Googling. VOR only is the hexagon with the dot. Yes. VOR DME is the hexagon with the dot in the middle. Oh, enclosed in a square. That's right. Yep. And VORTAC is the one with the thick markers. Yep. Yeah. So this one's the VORTAC then. Yeah. This icon right here. And then, yeah, VOR. Let's see if we can find just a straight up VOR. Here's a VOR DME right here. Yeah, the hexagon with the box. And then VOR would just not have the box around it. And then if it's a VOR that's at an airport, since you can't see the symbol, they put it in the top of the box right here. So see, this one says VOR DME, so you know what type it is. Since the airport symbol right here overrides that, they show the airport symbol instead of the VOR symbol. But there is a VOR at that field. Yeah, this is kind of just a simple flight compared to the one we were doing before. We could see if we can get a cross radial thing going here. If there's if there's a decent VOR in range, like I kind of want one that's perpendicular to us. This one's pretty far, but we can try to tune into this one, Astoria 114.0. So let's tune into that on our nav 2 down here, 1140. See if that one's in range. 114.0. No, it's not. So we can't figure out. I mean, we're kind of cheating a little bit. Like we have the Garmin in this, so it's not as challenging as using something like the Cessna 152 that doesn't even have DME. But we have DME in this one, so we know we're 31 miles away from the VOR right now. Yeah, we know we're heading towards it on this course. And because there's a 2 flag, if someone asked us what radial we were on right now, we see the 2 flag and we know to look at the bottom instead of the top. If it was a from flag, we would be on this radial. If it's a 2 flag, we're on this radial. So we're on the 3, that's 03, 04, almost 05, so like the 048 radial, I guess is what we're on. And I think that's what's on the Victor Airway here. Oh, 049. So there's a 049. So because it's relative to the VOR, the radial is always relative from, shooting out from the VOR. So we're on the 049 radial, but we're flying the opposite. We're flying southwest. We're flying this direction. Prefer the GTN 750. Oh yeah, I used the GTN 750 650 mod last week. Last Sunday's stream, I used that for a bit, and it was cool. I think it's really good just because any touchscreen stuff is just so easy to use in the sim. You're using your mouse. It's just really easy. Instead of dealing with all these different knobs and dials and inner and outer knobs, like it's really nice to just use the GTN 750 is awesome. If you just Google, I think it's on pms50.com. I think is that where that one is. GTN 750. Yeah, it's pms50.com is where the GTN 750 is at. There's a free version and a paid version. It's pretty awesome. I especially like how it works in the custom planes. So if you have like the Coronado or the Just Flight Pipers, or there's a few more, it works really well with those. It looks like it's like totally integrated into the cockpit. Why are we still climbing? What's going on here? Oh, I turned it on early. Whoops. Sorry, I turned that on earlier. Sorry, we're supposed to be at 2,500. I went down there to show you the vertical speed mode, and I just hit up, so it was just climbing forever. So we're gonna go back down here. Whoops. Can I make an advanced autopilot tutorial for the King Air? King Air uses... The King Air is the I think it uses the G3X, right? I think it has 2 G3X screens, or 3 of them. They're not the touch, not G3X touch, but I don't fly the King Air, so I would have to learn how to fly the King Air. I know it's pretty popular though. I know like the TBM is really popular, the Grand Caravan, and I think the King Air is really popular too. When I've looked at popular planes used on like On Air, they show like stats of what the most popular planes are. I think King Air is one of the more popular ones too. But Deuce, a lot of the stuff I do in the other autopilot videos will still apply to the King Air. Like the autopilots are pretty similar to each other. It's just about learning the different lateral modes and the different vertical modes and what they do. But functionally, they should be pretty similar. You know, even if you learn like the autopilot in this thing, or say in the G1000 version of this that has a flight level change mode, you'll pretty much know how the modes work, and even like in an airliner autopilot, you know. So that it could still help you. Look at like maybe the TBM autopilot one is probably good. That'll get you started, and then you'll know enough, I think, to probably figure out the rest on the King Air. They updated it 6 times recently, worked out a lot of bugs. Yeah, the developer that makes that, he also makes this mod I'm using for the 530-430. This one he has on GitHub. You can just go download it. And he added a bunch of stuff to this. So he added bug fixes, but he also added like the traffic and terrain pages here. So here, I think this is the terrain page. Yeah, so it's relative terrain. This is the kind of thing, this is just like advanced. This is like more like real life stuff, you know, he's pulling in. So he added this terrain page. He added a traffic page. So it's pretty cool. It's the same guy that makes the GTN 750. In news today, a light aircraft exceeded its altitude restriction after the pilot passed out. Returned to normal altitude and he did change of underwear. Yeah. Thankfully we didn't get that high. All right, how far away from the airport are we? 21 miles, or sorry, we're 21 miles from the VOR. So I guess what we could do is, I'm trying to think, like I don't really want to fly all the way to the VOR, right? I just want to fly directly to the airport. It looks like it has an east-west facing runway as well. But yeah, I guess if we were in like IFR conditions or something, that would be our only option, I guess, would be to get to that radial. I mean, we could tune in, we could dial in this radial instead, this northbound radial. So what was that, 340? Looks like about 340. This says 342, but I'm not sure how much the VOR varies from magnetic north as far as the map goes. But yeah, we could just dial in like 342 as our radial and then fly to intercept that radial, and then we would know like when the airport is close. But it feels better to fly to the VOR and then turn north, I guess. I'm just gonna do that. I'm just gonna fly over the VOR. You were flying a plane today and forgot you had minus 500. Minus 500. Oh, what, a vertical speed? Was getting ice cream in the kitchen. I heard 500 and had to run back. 500. What? What could you, I'm trying to think, what can you use? I remember, I know the NeoFly has that Neo pad. And back when I looked at that, you could put it on your actual tablet to kind of have like a live view of where you are, like a live moving map, like a poor man's ForeFlight. What's that other one? There's like another free one for Sims. What's that called? I forget what it's called, like flight bag or something. There's another free one that's kind of like ForeFlight, but it's, you know, it's free and it's for using in the sim, I think. I don't know if it's for real life use. But there is one out there somewhere that's free. But that'd be nice to have, like, you can monitor your flight, you know, on your phone, something like that. There are apps like, I have an app that'll connect to let me use it with ForeFlight. Or, you know, if you have Navigraph, you could use Navigraph. That has the moving map as well. Navigraph is just great. All right, how far are we now? 16 miles. Still descending. We're almost at 2,500 feet. If you go to the VOR, it'd be a good time to show what happens when you have to hold, or otherwise what it looks like to lose focus and blow past the radial. That's more likely. Yeah, that's a natural thing that's going to happen. Yeah, holds are interesting. Holds I'm not super familiar with. I do know that, you know, like for a missed approach, for example, like holding at a VOR is really common. And you just do the timing. I think in this kind of plane, you just do 1 minute timings, right? So you're just flying a heading, the heading that they assign you relative to the VOR or the radial they assign you. So you just go on that radial, make a 1 minute on the outbound leg, 1 minute turn, 1 minute on the inbound leg, 1 minute turn, and so on. But I've never actually done a hold myself in the sim. I think that's the kind of thing that is really good about flying, like, you know, VATSIM and stuff like that. I don't know how often those guys give you hold instructions or anything like that, but that would be really cool to do. Oh, Steve-O, yeah, dude, his channel is awesome. I always laugh when you request IFR clearance, they give him something they don't want to hear, and then they cancel, and then they request IFR again. Oh, yeah, they do like a pop-up IFR or whatever. I saw a video where, I forget who it was. Was it the Baron pilot? I forget the name of the channel, but I think he flies a Baron, like him and his wife, I think. And they were flying, they canceled their IFR. They didn't get an IFR on the ground, and then they got into IFR. They got stuck on this cloud layer, and they were trying to get an IFR to get down from it, and they couldn't. They got denied like 3 times in a row or something, and they couldn't get their IFR clearance to get below the clouds. I forget. I think they ended up just finding a hole and getting through. Oh, 310 pilot. I think that's right. Yeah. I think that's correct. Yeah. Yeah, I got to catch up on my YouTube tonight. I was gone for the weekend at a wedding, and so I'm actually probably like a week behind on my YouTubing myself. All right, so here comes the water. So we're getting close here. So we go out, and then right over the VOR, we just turn right. I mean, we're visual, so it'll be pretty easy to find the airport. Go over here somewhere. But yeah, I can fly through the VOR, and we can see the flag change, and then we can change our radial. So then we can change to the 342. It's not going to be 342 exactly. It might be if the magnetic north direction the VOR is aligned to is correct, but we'll see how it goes. Greetings from Jamaica. Hey, Puru. Is it Puru? Peru? C170, the Cessna's your favorite? It's great. I like the one, I really like this one without the G1000. I used to use this one a lot. But now that I'm just like really nerding out on the NXI, I'm flying the G1000 version a lot, and then I'm definitely flying the Diamonds more. I think the Diamonds are really cool. You're currently making a home sim for the Airfoils Lab C172. I'm gonna look that up. Airfoils Lab C172. Oh, they just have, I just see a video. Oh, King Air Simulation Excellence. Where's the, oh, I see planes. Oh, Cessna 172 NG. Purchased, release notes. Man, how much is, I don't even know what I'm looking at yet. Is it a home sim setup? 'Cause Oh. Yeah, the DA62 is awesome, yeah. It's such a, like, easy to fly. Like, I was sticking away from the twins quite a bit because I just, you know, try to stick with what I've learned so far and not try to fly too many different planes yet, but the DA62 is so easy to fly. It's kind of hard to see over the glass, like over the cockpit panel or whatever. Like this, I feel like I have to hit spacebar all the time to sit up in the seat. It's really hard to see out of that thing. I mean, it has the G1000, which is, you know, helpful, but I like to actually see out of it. It's like very high. But I love how easy it is to fly. I mean, the tech in those planes is crazy. I like the DA40 is really fun to fly too. The glass on the DA40 is so cool. You just have like, 180 degrees that you can see with just nothing obstructing your view. It's just really awesome. All right, here we are, 6.6 miles from the VOR, and then, so yeah, we're on the 049, so we're gonna then turn northbound just to play around with it. It's only 6 miles from here, so we're we should descend soon. We should just start our descent right now. Why not? Down to 1500. DA40, yeah. DA40 NG. They have the DA40 TDI, which is like the steam gauge version. It's kind of like the equivalent of this with the Cessna. They have like the G1000 version and then they have a steam gauge version. But I don't think the DA40 TDI has an autopilot. I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. And that scares me because flying without autopilot, it's just too serious, you know? I use autopilot way too much. It's a total crutch. A few weeks ago when we were doing the Skypark stuff though, we were doing, one of the missions had had an ILS and we were flying through like a tornado basically. So I had to hand fly the ILS and I hadn't done that in a long time and it's just so much work. It's crazy. It's like very mentally taxing. Yeah, I'm guilty of using autopilot too much, I think. All right, so let's look at this airport info. I'm just looking at the runways here on, there's actually not even an airport diagram for this. Runway 6 and 24, that's all we know. So we're gonna go for 24. It's over this way. It says 6 miles, so it's up this direction. This might be the closer airport. So there's this one, which is probably this guy right here, Ocean Shore, and that's another one north of it. So we have an east-west facing runways on this one. So we want the 342. So we're gonna fly over the VOR shortly. 2.5 miles to the VOR. I wonder if we can kind of see where it is. Sometimes you can kind of make out the VOR from the satellite images and see where it actually is. And then the autopilot is so nice when you're getting this close to the VOR though, because, you know, as you get really close, the needle gets really sensitive because you're so close to it. So it's harder to keep it on track. So it's pretty amazing when it does. But the autopilot will actually switch from nav mode to roll mode. It'll basically turn off nav mode once you pass over the VOR. So we have 1.5 miles. Not sure if we'll see. Sometimes you can see where it is, sometimes you can't. It's probably this right here. See that little circle? It's probably right here in this field. It's probably where the VOR is. 0.9 miles. So then what's going to happen is the autopilot's going to switch us to roll mode, which is just the default. It's just going to hold our wings level basically. And then what we could actually do is just, I'll just sync the heading bug up. I'll switch to heading mode. It'll switch us to roll when we go over it, but if I switch to heading, I'll just keep us on this heading. And then this needle is gonna pull over to the side as we pass it. And then the two from flag's gonna go away, and then I'll switch to a from flag. So we just passed over it, 0.2 miles. So it's gone, and now we have a from flag. Let's see, was that it right below us? Oh, maybe it was more in this field somewhere. It's hard to tell. It'd be really cool if they put the VORs on the ground. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is switch and follow that northbound course. It's only 6 miles, so 342. We'll just use 342 for the radial, so I'll dial that in right here. So there's 33, 34, 342, roughly around there. I'll be super lazy and turn on autopilot again. So then what we want to do is turn to a heading of 342. So we fly parallel first. So we just match our heading indicator to what we dialed in here. Turn to a heading of 342. And then we'll turn further to the north from there, or more towards like this heading over in this direction, like 45 degrees off. So we'll turn over towards like a 020, 025 around here to intercept the line. So we'll intercept that course, intercept the radial. And because we'll have a from flag, we'll be on that 342 radial. If we had a 2 flag, we'd look at the bottom to know which radial we're on when it's centered. All right, so we're kind of just flying right back over to where the VOR is, and then we'll make a left-hand turn. So then we'll just be going this way. It's only 6 miles away from the airport, so over here, it's measured out here for us, 6 nautical miles. So what we can do is just look at DME, because we have DME on this one. So when it says 6 miles, we know we'll be over our destination airport. Where are we going? We should be turning left now. Okay, here it goes. So we just flew over the VOR, so I'm letting autopilot do the work. It's magically taking us there. We would have flown north and then kind of flown to the right a little more to intercept it. It basically like turned us around right to where the VOR was almost. All right, so now once we get 6 miles north of the VOR, then we'll be at our airport. And I'm going to take us down. I didn't really look up all the airport information, so you know, just kind of doing this casually here, not following all the rules. So it's supposed to have an east-west runway. That's not an airport right there, is it? Everything looks like a runway when you're looking for a runway. It's probably this up here. The autopilot is really nice to use in VLOC mode, or you know, VOR localizer mode. Using it with a VOR is so nice. Just like when you're close to a VOR, it's just really nice for it to keep you right on the radial. It's just so challenging to fly them by hand. But if you don't have autopilot, like if you're flying the 152 in the sim, you have no autopilot to use. Definitely a lot more challenging. I'm on the West US server, but I'm gonna be done after I land here. It's a little later than I normally stream, and I'm pretty tired because I got off a plane today. I actually left on a plane for the first time since January 2020. I think was the last time I was on a commercial plane. And besides that, I was just in a Piper Archer with my girlfriend who flies a few times, but that's about it. All right, so we're just looking for 6 miles. We're already at 4, so we're really close. Is this it right here? It's supposed to have a concrete, it's at an asphalt runway. Is this it down here? It seems too close. Yeah, we're gonna fly over it. Yeah, it says it's in 2 miles. So maybe this. It's really hard to see. We're pretty low. I wanted to get down to like 1,000 feet AGL. This looks like the runway right here. And I did not check the wind. I know we can get weather info here. Maybe you get a nearby METAR. I'm on live weather, so it should be roughly the same. All right, wind is 9 knots at 300, so we can use that. We can use that 270 runway. I think there's a 27. All right, so just, yep, that's our runway right below us. All right, so we're gonna use, I think it's a 270, or no, it looks like maybe 240. We're pretty much parallel with it. Let me go check the information page again. The runways are, yeah, 24. Okay, so 24, 240. So I'll just put my heading bug there. And it's probably left traffic, but so we'd have to fly all the way around. Mm-mm. Oh, hey Scott, you tried instrument landing again, still won't work. That's weird. You're using the NXI, right? You could try their Discord server, the working title Discord server, and ask if that's a known bug. All right, so I'm turning so we're perpendicular with the runway. All right, so where is this runway? Oh, is it that way out there? I didn't get that far away, did I? Oh, it's right here in front of us. There we go. We're just crossing right in the departure traffic. It's fine. I guess technically we probably would have just flown over the airfield again, right? Yeah, the NXI. I noticed that too, Scott. I was trying to make an ILS video with the NXI, and that happened to me, so I had to stop making the video. I'm basically wanting to make I made that RNAV video for the RNAV approach with the LPV approach. I basically just want to make the same video, but do it with an ILS, and I couldn't because of that. So yeah, there's definitely some bugs with it. But those guys have been cranking, like they're like I'm hoping on Thursday there's another release. Having issues with ILS, did the game set up the correct frequency? No. If you're using the NXI, I don't think it auto-tunes the frequency for you. I think you have to look it up yourself and tune it. Oops, I'm a little bit off from the runway. Should be, I have 240 at our back. All right, first notch of flaps we can do early in the 172. I think it's 110 knots you can use your first notch of flaps, which is pretty cool. Direct keyboard input on the NXI. Oh yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, September 9th. That sounds right. I remember they delayed it. Whoops, I am off. Yeah, they delayed the World Update 6. I overshot my turn. Yeah, the direct keyboard input is so great. Especially when we're able to like manually input a whole flight plan and have it work correctly and sync with like with the sim and ATC. It basically right now, if you don't use the world map with the NXI, it doesn't like transfer the flight plan to the sim. Like the sim doesn't know about your flight plan. Only the NXI does, if that makes sense. So that's why you can't file IFR with ATC if you put in the flight plan manually. And, you know, if you ever use the VFR map, that's also why the VFR map doesn't show your route either. It's because it doesn't sync up with like the core sim basically. But once that's in, it'll be nice when you're inputting all that stuff by hand. It'll be really nice to have to use keyboard entry mode. Gotta kind of come in steep here because of these trees. This is going to be interesting. All right, got full flaps in. Ooh, that was landed a little sooner than I wanted to. I didn't really get too slow. I wanted to get slower before I touched down. Whoops. That was a little hard landing. You can turn off the new instrument highlighter. Oh yeah, you can turn that off if you go to accessibility options. You can go back to the old way. I actually like the new way. When you grab these, I mean, for my purposes, I like the highlighting because I'm usually pointing at stuff and being like, this is what this knob does. So it's nice that it highlights it. And then if you make a big change, like on the OBS knob or the heading bug down here, it's so nice to just click and drag your mouse. Like, look how fast I can change the heading bug. You know, it's really nice. And then I actually like it. The tooltips are really big. They're kind of big and ugly, but the information that gives you is really nice too. Like, if you have the tooltips on, even though they're huge, when you point here and change a value, you can see the value in the tooltip. It'll tell you exactly what the OBS knob's at, what the altimeter's at, what the heading bug is at. So you can really get it dialed in. You can get it dialed in really accurately that way. So it kind of helps you not have to zoom in and, you know, try to look at this altimeter reading, you know, and stuff like that if you're changing it by hand. So I kind of like that about it. Hey Chris, what's up, man? I'm about to go off. I'm pretty tired. It's late here, so I'm gonna I'm gonna go to bed right after I park here. But I'm always on US West. Yeah. As someone watching this stream, the highlighter is great. Yeah, I think it's really helpful for making videos and doing the stream, so definitely like that. But I get why people don't like it. Like the tooltips, when you first see them, they're pretty ugly. You're just like, oh, what am I looking at? Like, what is this crap? Oh, where's the parking spot here? Yeah, I'll show you the tooltip really quickly just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I know everybody tends to just hate on the new interaction mode or whatever, and I like, you know, because I want to learn about it and like say what I think the pros and cons are. I like try to find the good in it, you know. So here, let me turn it back on. If you go to general options under accessibility, that's where you can change it. So right down here, cockpit interaction system. So a lot of you probably changed it back to legacy, but I kept mine on lock. But the tooltips look like this by default. And actually something that doesn't work is, see how it says instant right here? That means they come up as soon as you point at it. But they have this other one called delayed, which people would probably like, but it doesn't actually delay the tooltip. They still come up instantly. Oh, wait, there was a delay. Oh, it works now. Oh, maybe they fixed that. So the delayed setting's nice then. Hey, Kip and girlfriend stream. I would love to do one with her. She's just, she's like very privacy minded and doesn't really want to like talk on the internet. Maybe I can convince her one day. We'll see. She could teach you guys as an actual pilot. She could say things. I know some of you guys are actual pilots too, but you won't just hear from a sim guy. But anyway, when you click and lock, see the number on the right side? It shows the actual number of the course I'm selecting. So that makes it really easy, you know. It feels more digital, you know, in that way. You can still use your mouse wheel, like when you point at it, you can still use your mouse wheel to turn it. But I do like the idea of like being zoomed out. Like you could be zoomed out like this and just point and click on it, and now it's locked to it. It's not going to move. You know, it's locked to using that control. You don't have to like move your mouse if you're in turbulence or something. And you can just turn it to that setting you want, or on the heading bug, it's the same way. You can just click and just accurately dial in a heading. So that's the benefit, but they are huge. The tooltips are really big and kind of ugly. So I totally understand not wanting them. I have them off, but anyway, cool. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, it's good to be back. It was cool to get away for a weekend and see some friends that got married in Idaho. I had never been there before, so it was cool. But it was you know, several flights for a weekend it always drains you a little bit. So I'm gonna go catch up on my YouTube and get a bite to eat, and probably start working on a new video. I want to do a new VOR video. That's what I was working on before I left, but didn't get it done. Anyway. Oh yeah, I should get paid, right? Here we go. Almost forgot. I always forget about it. I literally titled the stream Skypark or Skypark Sundays, and I forget to use Skypark. It's a problem. Cha-ching. Good night, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Been trying 2020 in VR. Great visual. The resolution. Yeah, I agree, Eric. I've tried it a few times too. It's really cool, but it's not very sharp. I hope they improved that. I hope they improve that later, because it is really cool flying in VR. It's just a little like blurry. That's all. All right. Thanks for hanging out again, guys. Chris, good to see you as usual, man. And everyone else, thanks for hanging out. Sledge, Gumper, Low Tech. Good to see y'all. And Dan, I'll see you guys probably next Sunday. I'm trying to get good at making this a weekly thing. Sharing a Skypark trip. This is the one I just did. This one wasn't super exciting though. Anyway, good night, guys. I'll see you on the next one. And if you want to chat in between, you can hop on the Discord. It's linked in the description of the video below, or in the description of all my videos and streams if you guys want to hop on. There's like almost 100 of us in there, and so we'll talk about things here and there. It's not the most active, but you know, if you want to hang out, feel free. And if not, that's cool too. Thanks for hanging out. See you guys next time. Peace. Have a good night or a good day wherever you are. Bye-bye.